Well, a very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to Milton Keynes for another round of the Simply Race Endurance Series. We move on this time to America, where we head for the 6 hours of Road America. This time we are in the DPI cars, and we move on for our first round over in 2022. We rounded out the year, of course, last year with the 6 hours of Imola in the GTEs on the 28th of November. And this time we go with the big boys. We are off, as I said, to Road America. It's myself, Dave Christie. I am not down in Milton Keynes, unfortunately. They've locked me in a broom cupboard for this weekend. But my co-commentator and main man himself, Mr. Alex Goldschmiidt, is down there. And he will be pretty much out there in charge. Alex, how have you been, buddy?
Good afternoon, David. Good afternoon. Yes, live and direct from Simply Race here in Milton Keynes. Qualifying has been completed. Road America opened back in 1955, just off of Wisconsin Highway 67. It's just over 4 miles, 14 very tightly packed turns with a bit of elevation change as well. It's also known as America's National Park of Speed. Yeah, I mean, after what we saw at Imola, Jeffrey for stepping in. I was otherwise engaged overseas. But yeah, I saw the race with DPI, apparently in Florida, apparently, but we're more interested in what's happening here, David.
Yeah, we certainly are. And on that note, I'm going to have to apologise. We're going to have to get you, Alex, a little bit closer to the receiver. I think Paul Jeffrey, when he was down there, has obviously stolen some of the batteries from the wireless microphone kit. But yeah, it's going to be an amazing, amazing day out, if the last time out is anything to go by. I mean, Road America, Alex, is an incredible circuit, 4 miles in length itself, as you were pointing out there. Qualifying about to get underway very, very shortly, and another stellar lineup, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Team Ford, we've actually had qualifying completed. Team Fordzilla, who lead this score, a maximum 75 points. It was double points at the 12 hours of Bud. They've got Rocket Zancho Simsport alongside him on the front row. It's going to be tightly packed. You cannot win a 6-hour endurance race through the very first corner. It's going to be tight. There's going to be many opportunities for fuel mileage, tyre stacking as well in terms of stinting, David. Incredibly crucial, I understand, is the track is very, very cold indeed. So they've got to get the brakes and the temps on the tyres up to temperature. And this is the prime opportunity. I mean, Team Fordzilla have got to start, have got to go into the second half of the season. We're at the half now, David. Still all to play for. And when we get to the final round in the latter part of June, the 24 hours of Spa, there's quadruple points on the cards. 100 points for the victory at the season finale. So don't say the championship is done quite yet.
Well, that is absolutely spot on, Alex, and some great points there. Again, apologies for the interference with Alex's mic just now, but we'll work to get that sorted. But the car's coming round then on their formation lap right now, and as we said, we've got what looks like around about, about 12 cars I think we've got ready to get going here at the Simply Race Endurance Series, the 6 hours of Road America. So it will be myself and Alex Goldschmiidt taking you all through the action here. So the car's just making their way under the bridge just now. This is pretty much about halfway through the course just now. Of course, corners to watch out for, like the Kettle Bottoms corner 11A. Then as they come up through the run towards Canada corner, that is where you're going to see some prime overtaking opportunities. But also watching here, the other thing that I'm very keen to watch out for, Fordzilla in pole position here, Alex. I mean, they've got a lot to prove, given a lot of turmoil behind the scenes that we've still to find out about, but they are still, giving it everything that they've got.
Jack Ashton, Charlie Cross, and an epic pair in their own right, and with what we saw at the first round at the 12 Hours International, a bit of information as well, Dave. 12 teams. We've got no Cam Sport Chill, no Green Shell Racing, but we've got 2 new teams, Orange Apex Racing and Precision Racing by BOA Esports. When you add new teams to the mix, David, is another bit of flavour to add to the boiling pot that we've got here at the Simply Race Endurance Series. So keep your eyes on these other teams, because one of the things you've got to do, if you're going to have lapped traffic to deal with, you've got to get past it very, very quickly. Now, that could be key to Team Fordzilla or Rocket Sancho Simsport. Barracuda line up on the inside of the second row. Sancho Rocket Simsport alongside Cam Sport and E-Team Brit. I mean, E-Team Brit, we saw when Martin Buchan was leading the 6 Hours of Imola in the Ferrari 488 last time out. There is so much that we can gather from this race, and this is really going to bring us kicking and screaming into 2022 in the right way.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on with that one. The reason being, of course, is that we're now towards the business end of the championship. We've got 2 rounds to go after this. We've got the 12 Hours of Portimao. That is on the on the 2nd of April, and then we have got the 25th of June. It's going to be the 24 Hours of Spa. But Alex, we've got the starting lineup here. Team Fordzilla then on pole position with Rocket Sancho on 2nd position there. We'll go back to 3rd and 4th in a second. Camsport in 5th and E-Team Brit in 6th and 7th. In 5th and 6th. On JPEX Racing in 7th there. Red Shell Racing in 9th. Precision Racing B in 10th position. Necesidad de la Vie in 11th position. I will try and get my teeth in for that one. And
I'm going to make it easier for you.
In 12th position. Alex, 12 cars on the grid here for this race. I mean, what can our viewers expect as we get ready to go green here?
Anything's possible in motorsport, David. You and I both know that, both in real life and also sim racing. But the focus here is going to be when we go green, which is going to happen in about 30 seconds' time. It is under SRE regulations that we're going to do a standing start. So that's going to be even more interesting. Who's going to get the most wheel spin off the line? Who's going to get the traction down? One of the biggest going to be crucial that as well. I've been hearing from race director Grant Lyman that we are lasted, but never can tell.
Well, here we go then. The cars are ready to go for 6 hours here at Road America. And we get going then. The race is underway. Fordzilla in the lead, and you can see already some jostling for position, and that is further down. That's Rocket Sancho Simsport under pressure from Barracuda and Camsport as well. Barracuda up the inside into turn 1 then, but they can't quite get the position there as Sancho Simsport then up into 2nd position behind Fordzilla. So Barracuda and Rocket Simsport getting pushed down and shuffling for position. Team Brit up into E-Team Brit into 6th position. Now they've moved up ahead of Apex Racing as well, but it is still a decent start there for Team Fordzilla as we head down in towards turn 5 then. This is going to be one of the flashpoints through the race as well. That long run up towards turn 6. We've got a brief yellow flag, and I bet that is into the breaking point into turn 5 there as Team Fordzilla, and you can see there Barracuda just ahead of E-Team Brit there. They get going as well, and we've got still a yellow flag, Alex, in sector 1.
Yes, David, but Team Fordzilla got the whole shot. I think that might have been Avanti Racing that has dropped down to the back end of the field as a result of that. So it's going to be difficult. I had a chat with a couple of guys from Avanti a bit earlier on, and you know, if you make a mistake early, you can come back from it. If it happens a little bit later on in the race, within the last 90 minutes, David, that's when it's going to be very, very difficult indeed to claw that back. And if you make a mistake when you're in a prime position to get points for the championship, that could be the difference between being in one position at the end of the season and being somewhere completely different.
Certainly is. So we've just got halfway through our first lap then here of the 6 hours of Road America. And for me, it's always a difficult one because I always get confused when I'm saying this between Road America and Road Atlanta, and they could not be two different circuits over here in the United States of America. But the halfway point of the championship, and it is Fordzilla still out front and in charge from Sancho Simsport. But this is the battle for 4th position, and that is Barracuda taking it from Camsport up the inside into the first corner, and they're going to have to watch out because look at E-Team Brit, they fancy having a little bit of early action here as well on the inside that corner. They're trying to have a look at Camsport, but it's not going to be happening just now. So we've got already on this second lap of the race, we've got a 5-car train going on for 4th position. E-Team Brit then having a look up the inside there, and that's late on the brakes into 5 for Cam Sport. That's going to give E-Team Brit a little bit of an opportunity up the hill into 6th here. But again, Alex, from your experience, this first 15 minutes is so crucial, isn't it, into settling the drivers down into a rhythm and making sure they survive.
Very much agree there, David. It's all about strategy, because I've spoken with a couple of drivers, including the likes of, say, for instance, Callum Cripps. You know, he said, who knows, we might be double stacking the tyres. If they do that, it's going to depend on the compound as well. And from the layout of the circuit here at Road America, one of the big things is, David, you're going to have to watch out for a particular tyre. And from what I've been hearing, it's the near side front, the left front, that could take more of the pounding, because it's being pushed and pulled. You know, the sidewalls are screaming to high heaven as they make their way through these nice twisty sections here at Road America. It's going to be crucial on how you manage tyre degradation. But one of the biggest key points is the main overtaking possibilities. You know, you're coming out of turn 14, and one of the big things about the straightaway here, it actually goes up an elevation change as well. And E-Team Brit looking rather racy behind Cam Sport. They're looking towards the inside going into turn 1. Are they going to be late on the brakes? Oh, that's close, and E-Team Brit get through.
That's a brilliant move there from E-Team Brit, making it up the inside into turn 1, then on lap 3. They've got it done. Just 5 minutes gone on the clock here, so a very long time to go, which means that any move that teams are thinking about, they've got to think about and make sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted before they even go for it. Of course, a very big weekend worldwide, both real life and virtual, for sim racing and for real life racing. Obviously in sim racing we've got the Simply Racing Endurance Series, we've got the VCO World Cup happening, and in real life you've got the Daytona 24 happening as well, Alex. So really, you know, this is an endurance lover's dream weekend for all of the action going on, and it's certainly, Alex, one of the weekends I'm glad I've got like 5 monitors plugged into this computer right now.
Well, I'm here in the background studio here beside our broadcast director, Mike Yao. The amount of screens we've got here, the amount of data and camera angles is absolutely mind-boggling as always. But yeah, like you say, the amount of... who said there was an off-season? There never is these days with esports and real-life racing, because the Formula One calendar last year finished in, December. And we had the 24 Hours of Dubai a few weeks ago. So, yeah, motorsport is in full effect all 365 days of the year.
It absolutely is, and that's what makes it so much fun, is the fact that I remember maybe say 4 or 5 years ago the argument was, oh, is sim racing going to replace real life racing? And the simple fact of it is, no, it was never intended to. Instead, what it is for all of us motorsport junkies who simply cannot get enough of the idea of watching racing or being behind the wheel, you can just get even more of your fill all the way through the year and switch from one to the other. And it's we're really happy to see that. Fordzilla out in front then by 1.2 seconds. That gap, very quickly gaining traction, Alex. And who do we have behind the wheel of the Fordzilla car this weekend?
I will have a check in just a moment's time, because Team Fordzilla in the moment, David, have just put in the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 49.680. I was seeing the 148s in free practice a little bit earlier on. So when we get lower fuel levels, tyres are at their optimum, the weight is coming down on the Cadillac DPIs. It's going to be crucial, and it's about how consistent you are over a period of time. And there's personal bests being set by Barracuda, E-Team Brit, Cam Sport, Red Shell Racing, who are respectively in 4th, 5th, 6th and 8th position. Cadan Casual Apex. You know what? I have to say, one of the best things that you're missing out on is custom-made T-shirts. Dan Hyde has come in with the Scuderia Glickenhyde T-shirt that he's had made for himself personally, and on the back it's got Eat, Sleep, Hide, Repeat. Priceless.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Of course, Dan Hyde, an absolute character in the SRES scene as well. And we were talking about that last time, actually, with Paul Jeffrey, and the amount of effort in terms of marketing and branding that all these teams go to. Obviously, some of the teams decide to take part in SRES for a bit of fun and a bit of enjoyment. Some of them as part of their professional esports team commitments, and some of them it's a hybrid. It's a mix of they want to represent their team, but they just shown up for a bit of enjoyment and something a little bit extracurricular to that. But again, you're starting to see now Team Fordzilla eking out that gap. We're still under 10 minutes into a 6-hour race, and this is an ominous sign for the likes of Zancho Simsport and Rocket Simsport. The fact that Fordzilla so comfortably able to eke away. The other thing that we do have to keep an eye out, though, that doesn't give us any idea right now, is strategy, is tyre saving strategy, as Alex so very rightly pointed out. The front left is going to be absolutely cooking in the sun here in the virtual recreation of the Wisconsin track. As you see, Necesidad de la Fe having a bit of a wobble there, and the 10th place car behind them trying to get onto the back there. And I'm pretty sure, Alex, by the 6 hours being up, I will be able to pronounce that team name correctly.
Well, I'm going to make this a little bit easier. It's the Spanish translation for Need for Speed. So we will just nickname them NSF España. Makes it easier, doesn't it? Behind the wheel for Team Fordzilla, Martin Buchan is the starting driver for E-Team Brit. Remember, after what was it, 5 minutes? Martin Buchan is actually starting for E-Team Brit. I've just had a chat with Max Spooner. I've seen Dan Hyde is for Cadan Casual Apex at the moment. So Jack Ashton taking the opening stint for Team Fordzilla. And already he's consistent. 1 minute 49.6 was the fastest lap for Team Fordzilla. Jack Ashton has just put in a 1:49.8.
Excellent stuff. Our man on the ground there, Alex Goldschmiidt, getting all of the crucial information that we're going to need to know over the next 6 hours. So obviously this is a mixed championship. What I mean by that is the fact that the different events have different classes taking part. So we started the season off back in September, if you can even remember back to September last year, the 12 hours of bid in the DPI cars. Then we moved to the last round, which was the 6 hours of Imola in the GTE class cars. That was all the way back in November. Obviously we're in the DPIs now. Then we moved to the GTEs in April, and then it is the DPIs and GTEs together with the basically the best teams getting given that chance to be in the DPIs, and then it's a battle for everyone else in the GTEs. But we're watching Cadan Casual Apex here down in 10th position. They're currently trying to catch up to the back of that Need for Speed machine, and again it's one of those things, Alex, where teams and drivers don't necessarily, and more importantly actually our viewers, don't need to be concerned maybe their teams starting to fall away a bit from the car in front. There's a lot of strategy and a lot of forward planning going on at this very early point, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, we've alluded to it already several times in the broadcast, even though we're into the now second part. Well, we've gone past 11 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at fuel consumption as well. That's another thing you've got to factor in. I mean, how many laps are these DPIs going to complete before they need to be refueled? Are they going to change tyres? Now, the thing is that if you get a team like Fordzilla who will know that they've got the pace beneath them, they might opt to change tyres at every single pit stop. And one of the things that brings into the mix is other teams might decide to double stint. And what you'll see is the gaps will close a little bit because, say, for instance, if you have Rocket Zancho Simsport, who are currently in pod 3, they're still about 1.8 seconds adrift. They're running in the high 1:49.9s, and they're consistent, which is a good thing to see. If they decide, well, we're gonna double stint the tyres, because those tyres are already activated, they're in their optimum racing window in terms of temperature, that could help to close the gap on a car in front, for instance. When you've got cars in a single class like we've got with the DPIs here at Road America, you're going to find that over that period of time, the amount of time you spend changing tyres in the pit stop window could be either a help or a hindrance.
It's a very, very good point there, Alex. And I'm just actually trying to rack my brains as to remember what exactly how it all panned out at Imola, because obviously both myself and you, Alex, we work on a number of different series, and you were unfortunately busy elsewhere. So it was Paul Jeffrey that we had in last round for the 6 hours of Imola. And the thing is that you're always guaranteed with this SRES. You're always guaranteed close, intense, strategic racing. It might not always be, nose to tail on the track for all of the race, but you will have points where it all squeezes back together, and you get this drama playing out. Just to explain, for anyone who is brand new to the Simply Race Endurance Series, firstly, welcome along. Secondly, just to explain what this is and how this differs from pretty much every other sim racing live stream that you see here. This is an event that is actually happening in person at the Simply Race establishment down in Milton Keynes. If you head over to simplyrace.co.uk, you will see more information about the venue itself. It's basically one of the premier sim racing arrive and drive venues here in the UK. They are starting to sort of get more popular, and you're starting to see sim racing venues coming up through the UK, but Simply Race have been one of the longest standing venues here in the UK, and it's all absolutely state of the art equipment, which is why you get some of the biggest team names popping in to take part in events like this as well. Now, as we said about the pods, to explain what happens with them, out of the 15 pods that are there, the teams that sign up then get put into a random draw, and they get allocated the pod through that draw. So for instance, Fordzilla in pod 1, Positively Racing 1 in pod 2, Positively Racing 2 in pod 3, Pure Motorsport are in pod 5, Red Shell Racing in pod 6, Radicals Online in pod 7, Camsport in pod 8, Barracuda in pod 9, Casual Apex in pod 10, pod 11, Scuderia Novizi, Lamati Racing in pod 12, and then E-Team Brit in pod 15. And what that means is when we cut to the camera shot of the interior at Simply Race, and you see everybody about, that's all of the individual pods. And not just the pods, you can see the plethora of people that are taking part. That's all the other drivers and supporters as well. It's a very social event. And Alex, given everything that's gone on that we're not going to go too much into over the past couple of years, my God, does it feel amazing to see that place full and everybody having a very good time.
Yeah, definitely. On another note, we've had our first penalty of the race come through, courtesy of race director Grant Lyman. An incident on lap 1 involving Avanti Racing, Red Shell Racing, Precision get a drive through penalty.
That's very early, Alex, for a drive through penalty, but I would argue maybe one of the better things, because obviously you can serve the penalty and then try and recover what's left of your race.
Yes, as I said earlier on. I mean, coming back to what you were saying, to see the amount of people that are here, we haven't just got the drivers, we've got friends, we've got family members as well. So it really is, it's very different to what you would have, like, say, the work that myself and David have been on. We've been in our respective offices, behind our webcams with our headsets on. This is where you actually get that real feeling of being in a really good atmosphere. And I can tell you what they say, that like silence is golden. The silence is absolutely deafening, because I can just hear the engine noises that you can feel the rumble of the direct drive feedback on the Thrustmaster equipment that we've got here at Simply Race. A big thank you as always to Thrustmaster for their continued support of the site here. One of the things from that is that we've had a very difficult 2 years. Coming up to 2 years in just 2 months' time. But keep your eyes on Barracuda. They are closing in on the third place car. That is the Zancho Rocket SimSport car. So it's the battle for P3. So it's car 2 versus car 9. The gap between them is about half a second at the moment. And Barracuda, David, last time around, were the best part of 3.5 tenths of a second quicker.
Yeah, I think we're definitely starting to see some fuel saving, possibly some tyre differences going on between the cars, because have a look at the front as well. That gap is starting to come down rapidly between Fordzilla and Zancho Simsport as well. So we've got a lovely bannered message getting carried above the virtual circuit here at Road America. But Fordzilla in the lead of this race as we hit nearly 20 minutes gone of our 6-hour race. Fordzilla in the lead from Zancho Simsport, sister team Rocket Simsport in third position, Barracuda in fourth, and E-Team Brit in fifth. It's then Cam Sport Racing in sixth position, Apex in seventh, and then it's in eighth position. It's going to be, I believe that is Positively Racing, and then you've got Need for Speed and Casual Apex in 10th position as well. So that's your top 10. That's not all of the cars there just now, but my attention firmly, Alex, getting taken to the front, and Fordzilla now for the first time in 15 minutes starting to come under increasing pressure and increasing speed from Zancho Simsport.
Yeah, Rocket Zancho Simsport in the 3 car rounding out the top 2 at the moment. They were quicker by nearly 2/10 in sector 1. They were quicker by 1.5 and a bit through sector number 2. So the gap is coming down. It's now 4.5 of a second. For those wondering, the live timing on your screens on the left-hand side is showing the current delta between the respective positions out on track. There is a really close battle happening coming out of turn number 14, and it's between Orange Apex Racing in the number 13 and Red Shell Racing in the number 6. They're battling away over what is 7th position. Orange Apex Racing, one of the newer teams for this round, if memory serves me correctly. But yeah, this is where things are just going to get really, really close. And what Rocket Zancho Simsport need to do is, as you said, they need to put the pressure onto Team Fordzilla. They need to do it early, because if you break the back of that momentum that Team Fordzilla have got with a maximum points haul coming in, as Barracuda really close on the braking zone, coming through underneath the SRES bridge there as they go into the next left-hander. They've got to break that momentum streak early, and if they do that, then Team Fordzilla will then have to pull out all the stops in order to get back past. But they can do that in the pit stop phase, as Red Shell Racing looking towards the inside of Orange Apex, or 7th position once again on other parts of the screen that I'm actually, the screens that I'm saying. Oh, good to see that we're getting some interaction courtesy of YouTube. Good to see Johnny Ashley saying hello lads, and saying let's go Cam Sport and Kadan boys. So we know who Johnny Ashley is going to be cheering for at the moment. But yeah, it's going to be crucial. But again, now Team Fordzilla are starting to respond. They've actually gone, get this, Jack Ashton has gone nearly 3/10 quicker in the 2nd sector. So obviously that car really looking pretty handy in the middle part of the circuit for Team Fordzilla at the minute.
Yeah, certainly is. And we're on board still with Barracuda, just coming round the final corner here before the run up towards the start-finish line. The iconic image for me here at Road America is the amazing MX5 Cup races that they have here in real life, and watching 5 cars, 3 abreast, coming up across the start-finish line to finish one of the races. That's some of the things we've seen many a time here at the Simply Racing Endurance Series as well, in the GTE cars. Really close and tense.
Sorry to cut across you, David.
As we said, that Fordzilla car, it's ebbing and flowing like the tide. It's going out and then it's coming right back in, because that gap now just 0.2 of a second, and Fordzilla coming under real pressure here. And here's the other thing, the fact that it goes immediately out to a second there makes me wonder, either that's a mistake from Zancho Rocket Simsport, or Fordzilla, Alex, doing an amazing job at such an early stage, just managing the tyres, managing the pace, and managing the pressure that they're under right now.
Yeah, there's been a change in the meantime. Red Shell Racing pulled it around the outside, going down the start-finish straight on Orange Apex Racing. They actually got the position changed before they even hit the apex, the inner apex of turn number 1. Barracuda had a little bit of a moment, so that's cost them a little bit of time behind Zancho Rocket Simsport in the number 2 car in pod 2. So battles ebbing and flowing, like you say, and Rocket Zancho Simsport have just taken, David, 3/10 out of Team Fordzilla. So as you said, it's ebbing and flowing. It's 41-1 for Team Fordzilla in sector 1, 41-5 for Rocket Zancho Simsport. Then it was the boot was put on the other foot, so to speak. So 38-5 versus 38-2. So and now we get to see we're getting to see everything closing up a little bit more, because between Zancho Rocket Sim Sport in third, Barracuda, E-Team Brit, Cam Sport. Okay, get this, David. The gap is probably no more than about a second and a half, maybe a little bit more between the four cars. And this is for, at this stage, the de facto final step on the rostrum.
Certainly is. We're seeing that just now as Rocket Sim Sport then ahead of Barracuda, Barracuda, E-Team Brit and Cam Sport. All fighting it out, as Alex pointed out there, coming into a nice little train here. And this is what it makes me very, very curious, because we see here Barracuda, right, they're right on the tail end of Rocket Zancho Sim Sport, but they're not wanting to push it. Same with E-Team Brit and Cam Sport. If you ask me, the four drivers there, they're very happy to be sitting in under the wing of the car in front. They know that they're not going to be pushing on to take this race lead at this stage of the race. That might change in about an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours time, but for the moment they're fighting for third, and at the moment they want to save as much fuel as they possibly can. And I wonder if that's, Alex, what Zancho Rocket Sim Sport are doing in second place. Consistently half a second behind, but again letting Fordzilla take the strain of having the lead and trying to tuck in and save whatever they can. So just watching as the cars come round. 5 hours 35 minutes left to go in the race here. We've done 25 minutes of this race so far. We're still watching E-Team Brit, who are in a bit of a rock and a hard place right now. I believe it is, as Alex had said, Martin Buchan behind the wheel of that one. We see a little bit of dust getting kicked up from one of the cars in front. I think that was actually the Rocket Zancho Sim Sport machine kicking up the dust there as they head down in towards turn one. That gap now, I would say, is probably within about 0.3 of a second there. But here we get a wonderful view back from the tail end of the Zancho Rocket Sim Sport machine, and that is a decent run that they've got as Barracuda right behind them. But that gap has opened up ever so slightly, and now it looks like, if anything, it's E-Team Brit who are closer than ever before to the back of the car behind them. So again, this is kind of going in waves. It's going out and then it's coming back in, and all of the four cars here doing a decent job, Alex, of trying to maintain the balance here. And having tried the DPI car in R Factor 2, as we see E-Team Brit getting a little bit wrong on turn 4, putting themselves under pressure from Cam Sport. These DPI cars are not easy to handle at all. Very, very difficult cars.
Yeah, very much the case, David. I mean, a slight mistake there coming out of turn 4, that could have gone very, very south very, very quickly. But Martin Buchan had the presence of mind. I mean, we both know him very, very well anyway, because we've commentated on him quite a bit in terms of sim racing. So a little mistake like that might help Martin to just sort of, take a breath for a second. But this track here at Road America, you are pushing the whole way round the circuit. It is going to come down to mental and physical exertion, but also the strategic game of chess. Who out of this quartet are going to be the ones that are going to blink first and go into the pits? Because that will then decide how the race begins to unfold in the first foray, because we're 26 minutes in and no one's putting their cards all on the table. It will happen a little bit later on in the race, nevertheless.
As we see a yellow flag in Sector 2, very briefly, it's going to be a car just running over track limits there. As you said, I mean, with the DPIs there, I'll come back actually to that thought. I just want to bring your attention to what you can see there, picture in, picture live from Milton Keynes. And again, a wonderful, wonderful sight. You can see, you can almost actually see what Alex was pointing out there, the sound of silence. You can see how still those drivers are in their pods, just doing their laps, doing their stints, getting their job done, as it were, as part of the team event here. But again, having so many people behind the scenes involved in making these teams able to compete, it is a brilliant atmosphere. And as a Scotsman, I'm going to say this completely impartially, Alex, but the fact that there's a fully licensed bar there at Simply Race, that just makes the time go by even quicker, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Obviously, we don't encourage drinking and sim racing both at the same point. That's very much the case. Well, I mean, I've just had a nod in my general direction otherwise, but that depends on what time of day it is, and it's definitely not at this particular moment in time at 2 o'clock. It is definitely 5 o'clock somewhere. I've just been told by Mike Yao.
Listen, boys, you have not lived until you've taken one of the DPI cars round Daytona with a couple of Jaeger bombs, but that is speaking on behalf of somebody else completely. That is not me, honest. Anyway, back to the action here, and as we said then, this battle's still going on, and Alex brought up the point there of strategy and pit stops, and absolutely spot on. That is going to be very, very soon. Now, from my understanding, these DPI cars will have, I would imagine, between 30 and 40 minutes worth of fuel. Certainly from what we saw in other races, you know, they're doing about the same sort of speed. So I would imagine they will be in, or you will start to see them in the next 10 minutes. We will find out if I'm going to be left with egg on my face very, very soon. But again, it just brings in another, you know, addition to the mix, another tasty little morsel to mix things up here in the Simply Race Endurance Series, is the fact that, you know, not only do they have to have their strategy on point for the GTE races, but they've got to think about them for these DPIs as well. Very, very different machines. They handle differently. They eat up the tyres in a different way. They have different requirements in terms of the fuel loads and things like that. And there's a lot less room for manoeuvre with these DPIs, I would imagine, than with the likes of the GTEs. So controlled drives, I think, are going to be the measure of the day. And I've got to be honest, this is one of the it's been exemplary in terms of behaviour, in terms of the drivers just concentrating, doing their stints. We've not really seen, like we saw at Imola, any crazy openings to the race here, Alex.
No, it's a very different. I mean, it's in some respects it is very much a technical track. You've got to really maximise the optimum setup for these cars. You know, we had a very different proposition at Imola with the GTE cars. You know, we had majority of them going for the Corvette C8R. We had a Porsche in there. We had a few Aston Martins, the odd Ferrari here or there. So good to see the Cavallino Rampante represented on home soil last time out. But the DPI is a very, very aerodynamic machine in its own right. But the biggest thing is that you don't want to trip up. You don't want to make undue, unforced errors. And that is going to be crucial to the consistency I was talking about earlier. These drivers are looking at a target. And when they know that they've hit that target, they'll then bring the car in, get it fueled up, maybe get a new set of soft tyres on there as well, because the more that you... Oh, a little bit of snap oversteer for Martin Buchan coming through one of the corners, actually going through underneath the Simply Race Endurance Series bridge. You know, those sort of slight mistakes, that can cost you a tenth and a half, depending on how hard you are pushing. But as I said, they've got a target to hit, and if they're going to counteract a strategy, because everyone's here in person, and that's a very different strategy to when you're on a Discord server and you're racing from home. It's completely different here, and the atmosphere is something completely different. Because right, Cadan Casual Apex are in the pits just after the half-hour mark. So that's the first team that's decided to bring the car in, and I think Phil Webb was behind the wheel of that vehicle.
Great shout out, thank you very much, Alex. And just noticing as well, Ubarakuda coming to some sort of an issue there, because they dropped behind Camsport and have dropped back now about 5 seconds behind. And there we go then, pit stops happening. Fast and frantic then, Fordzilla, Zancho into the pits there. We can also see into the pit lane, that's E-Team Brett, that's Camsport into the pits as well. Rocket Zancho Simsport staying out in the lead of the race, but they still have to pit here, so it looks like we were bang on the money with that half-hour prediction, and that is not the outlap that you want to have for Cadan Casual Apex there. That is going to be a little bit of grass onto some very, very cold tyres there, and that car, Alex, looking a little bit sluggish to get up to speed here.
Yeah, that's always the thing when you've got cold tyres, you know, from the realism in terms of the R-Factor 2 platform. You're going straight onto cold tyres. The brakes will be cooling as the wheels are taken off and the new tyres and wheels are put onto the car. So straight away, you've got to get both up to temperature. And that's a very interesting proposition because these drivers are going to have to get up to speed rather quickly, but you won't see the tyres really become at their optimum within the first maybe 2 to 5 laps of that next stint if they have switched tyres around. But Zancho Rocket Simsport leading at the moment. Barracuda actually also staying out as well, 6.6 seconds behind. Team Fordzilla, their pit stop 42 dead. E-Team Brit 40.9, Camsport 39.4. So whether teams are deciding not to potentially go on a full tank of fuel, they might slightly short fuel to help the strategy.
And there we go, looks like we've got a new leader, Zancho Simsport, up to the lead of the race. We'll get a look at that as they come over the timing lines just now, because as it stands, obviously Rocket Simsport in the lead ahead of Barracuda, but these two still have to pit. So this is almost certainly not going to be for position. Barracuda then into pit lane, and Zancho Simsport now appear to be ahead of Team Fordzilla there. And is that was another car going back into pit lane? I'm pretty sure that wasn't Fordzilla, excuse me. But there we go then. Zancho Simsport appearing to have taken the provisional lead from the race from Team Fordzilla. But E-Team Brit up in third position as well. Now we'll see how that all fans out over the course of the pit stops here. This is Need for Speed currently down in 10th position. But I'm just thinking as well, if that is the case, that Zancho have pulled the jump with a later pit stop as well, 0.6 of a second longer than Fordzilla, Alex, that is going to be a move that's happened on track, and a very uncharacteristic move, you've got to say, for Fordzilla to lose that position.
Well, the number 3 car was 0.6 longer on the pit stop window there, David. But however, we'll hopefully see if we might be able to catch what happened. But yeah, pit stop strategies can be crucial. If there's been an issue for Fordzilla going out of the pit, right, I think it might have been, I'm trying to look at the delta, the splits in terms of the sectors. Because Barracuda have just put in a 41.9 on the pit stop. So that will bring them out possibly in front of Red Shell Racing, who are still sitting in 7th, as I think, yeah, it's not easy out there. We're going to go to a bit of a replay here. Here's Precision Racing by BOA Esports, getting it all kinds of left-hand down in terms of the back end stepping out to the left-hand side. It just goes to show that on these colder tyres, because they're not up to temperature, it's that fine case of that balancing that fine line. And with the track temperatures actually being quite cold, when we started the race, it was 0 degrees Celsius. Race director Grant Lyman was talking to me about snowmen earlier on.
Well, it's funny you say that, Alex, because driving back from the Highlands as I was doing today, I was surprised at the amount of snowfall that actually has happened over the past couple of days. So, snow. I don't think we're going to see it here at Road America, but obviously very, very cold comparative conditions that we're seeing out on track. And I'm a little bit confused here. Is that actually E-Team Brit being all plucky and brave and harassing Rocket Zancho Simsport here and bringing Camsport into the battle as well? This is a cracking little battle then for 3rd, 4th and 5th position as it stands. And just to confirm then, it is Zancho Rocket Simsport ahead of Team Fordzilla after an unbelievable turn of events then. Fordzilla leading that entire first stint of the race there by up to 2 seconds. That gap came properly down, and you can see there Rocket Zancho Simsport moving from left to right, trying to break the toe for E-Team Brit. I think it's too late though. E-Team Brit firmly on the back end of that car. It's going to be battle of late breakers. In fact, E-Team Brit don't want anything to do with that into turn 1 on the run down to turn 2 then, and it's again the right hander here, and then into 3 on the run down through 4 into the Moraine sweep. And again, as they go on towards 4 here, this is what it's all about. This is all about trying to put the car off in front of you while also doing everything you can to keep cool, calm and stable. A little look up the inside there from E-Team Brit, but it's not to be. Late on the brakes into turn 5. That's going to get them a good exit on the run up the hill underneath the Simply Race bridge there into 6 as they head towards the Hurry Downs then. Still not seen the relative times change for the leaders here, but there's Fordzilla into the pit lane there, and you can see that'll be what happens. I wonder, they go, but they don't actually get going again. So they get going. That's a 44-second stop. Now,
yeah.
Oh, okay, that's let's have a look here as all the other cars come in, and that is Rocket Sim Sport behind them. So
yeah,
Alex,
I mean,
obviously that's been a move that's then done on track. It wasn't done on the pit lane. I wonder if it's been a mistake here from Fordzilla, maybe on the cold tires here. We'll keep an eye on.
Yeah, so just keep your eyes peeled.
On the run out of the pits then. Oh, they just go too deep into 3. That's what's happened. Almost a carbon copy. So Alex, it just shows even the sort of best of them can get caught out in these cold conditions.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you're trying to get those tyres up to temperature, and Team Fordzilla, it was an unfortunate drop of the ball. It does goes to show that when you need to get the car out of the pits as expediently as possible, a mistake like that, okay, it's in the first, less than 40 minutes? We've had the first set of pit stops out of the way, and now they can start going about, they're going to have to rethink their strategy now at Team Fordzilla. And this is where it's going to be crucial. And I've already seen that Rocket Sancho Simsport in the number 3, who is still currently leading at this moment, are nearly 8.5 tenths of a second ahead of Team Fordzilla. But Fordzilla are quite comparative on pace. But Rocket Sancho Simsport at the moment in the number 3 seem to be doing a pretty good, consistent job. But yeah, that mistake, I think they'll be kicking themselves a little bit, but they can come back from it, guaranteed.
Weirdly enough, in the grand scheme of things, that's actually such a minor mistake to have had happen, and I think over the course of the next 5 hours and 20 minutes, it's not actually going to be all that costly given what we've still got left to go here. Just watching here then, Rocket Sancho Simsport in the lead of this race with Fordzilla closely behind that gap now. What, about 4 tenths of a second here as we head through towards the tail end of the course. This is through into Canada Corner, up through 13, and then it's going to be into the right-hander at 14 as our timing board updates itself. And a huge thank you to our production team behind the scenes, which is quite simply Mike Yao doing everything, doing the cameras, doing the graphics, doing everything behind the scene to make us look and sound absolutely wonderful, Alex Goldschmiidt. And my God, we absolutely need it, don't we?
He is the sim racing broadcast equivalent of the Swiss Army knife. I've told him that many a time. But already 40 minutes in, Rocket Sancho Simsport have just got past Precision Racing by BOA Esports. Now, obviously, Precision had that drive-through penalty for that lap 1 incident earlier on in the race. So this is where it's going to be crucial, because we know just for what you people have been seeing at home. A big thank you for joining us here on the multiple feeds on Twitch, on YouTube, on Facebook Live as well. A big thank you for you all for tuning in. The backmarker traffic side of things is going to be paramount, but with the closeness of the white lines on the track limit, so to speak, we could see some drivers needing to have to take some calculated risks. And what I mean by that is, if you are at least 100% committed to that move, you know you can do it, go for it, and if it pays off, great. If you are 95%, there's going to be that little bit of doubt that's going to creep in, and you're going to think, do I really chance it? Can I go for it? Nah, it's a bit too close to call, and they'll use discretion as the better part of valor, David.
They absolutely will there, Alex. And just looking at the timing screens there, 4 seconds now the gap between Sancho Simsport and Fordzilla. So when I was looking at Sancho Rocket Simsport there, and I presumed that was Fordzilla behind them, it was looking like the gap was about 4 or 5 tenths of a second. But that gap is, if that is right on the timing screens there, that is absolutely huge for such an early stage of the race. Certainly can be brought down very, very quickly indeed. And we're watching this battle then for third, 4th and 5th position. As you can see, the gap starting to eke out between the two of them. Ubar could have dropped off the edge of a cliff there. They are now in no man's land, 4 seconds behind, 4.5 seconds behind this fight here for 3rd, 4th and 5th position. And then it's Red Shell racing down in 7th with Apex racing in 8th position. Kiran Casual Apex in 9th. A Need for Speeds into that 10th position there. So Kiran Casual Apex gaining a position, and we get an idea of how this race is starting to pan out here, because obviously we're going to have another set of pit stops in about 20 minutes time, 17 and a half minutes time. I would imagine they're going to try and time them for the half-hour mark. Certainly for fuel-wise, that would be the clever thing to do. But that gap going up now between Zancho Rocket Simsport and Team Fordzilla. Meanwhile, back for 3rd, 4th and 5th. This is brewed up very, very nicely indeed. Rocket Zancho Simsport ahead of E-Team Brit with Martin Buchan behind the wheel, and then it is Camsport in 5th position here. And Alex, in your opinion, from your experience with Camsport, what do you think they should be doing right now? It's still 5 hours, 15 minutes left to go in the race. Do you think they're doing the wise thing, just tucking in behind E-Team Brit and waiting to see what happens?
I think in some respects, when you look at the configuration of the DPI, you're going to have a lot of dirty air behind that big rear wing, with the shark fin on the back of the engine housing. And one of the big things from that, David, is that you can save fuel. You're not having to accelerate as hard. The throttle's probably not at 100%. It might be at 80, 85%. So they're going to be able to save maybe fractions of a litre of fuel in order to help their strategy. Now, over the course of the period of a stint, as I've just seen that, oh my goodness me, Rocket Zancho Simsport now have a 5-second lead over Fordzilla. And Rocket Zancho Simsport in the number 3, David, have just put in a 1:49.958. Team Fordzilla on that last lap, nearly a second adrift. And at one point, Rocket Zancho Simsport did a 1:50. Team Fordzilla did a 1:54, and that could have been from when that mistake happened, coming out of the pits, possibly, or a little bit later on in the stint.
That would explain it then, because obviously they went wide, they've lost a couple of seconds, and maybe it's been a case of that it's always been that wide for the gap there. So great to see though that they're still on the mend, they're still keeping on going, and as I said, in the whole grand scheme of things, going wide and losing a couple of seconds, that is, that is spilt milk. As they say, nothing really too much to worry about. But here we go then. This is Precision Racing B, and this is the battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th right behind. So this is the first of lap traffic right now, and it's compromised Rocket Zancho Simsport, because that's allowing the E-Team Brit now to get tucked up right underneath the wing of that DPI car, and allowing Camsport to come in as well. And this now means that it's going to be very, very dangerous going down in towards turn 1 for these guys and girls. Just now they come through 13, and it's on the run down to 14 then to get another lap started here at Roads America. We're still watching Precision Racing B, but I'm very curious to see what happens with that battle for 3rd position, because Rocket Zancho Simsport in the number 2 machine under increasing pressure. We move across there now. Let's have a look what happens here. Are E-Team Brit close up? I don't think they are. Camsport though want to think about making a move as well here, and in fact I think they're closer to E-Team Brit than E-Team Brit are to the car in front. And you can see there, Alex, the tyres now really starting to struggle in this temperature here. I was getting the impression earlier on that E-Team Brit were struggling with the tyres. That's confirmation. Going into one, a little wiggle of the car as the traction starts to give out from these tyres on these DPI machines, and I wonder if we're going to get tyre changes in the next pit stop here.
Yeah, I mean, if you can stretch a set of tyres to an hour, you've done pretty well there. I did notice that E-Team Brit lost out by about 0.2 of a second to Zancho Rocket Simsport, but they were quicker by well over the best part of half a second in the middle sector. So Martin Buchan's really hooking it up in Sector 2, but Sector 3 is where it's coming a bit undone, so to speak. And the lap times, I mean, Zancho Rocket Simsport, even with having had that buffer in Sector 3, were still 0.118 slower than E-Team Brit. So it's a case of, where do you push where do you feel is the car most comfortable, more than anything?
Yeah, and on that note, I mean, it's so awesome to watch the fact that they're so controlled over such a long distance and period of time. The teammates as well, Alex. I'm just thinking about, we said earlier about how many people are involved in making this happen. Obviously, we've got supporters there as well and well-wishers, but a lot of the people there are going to be teammates of the drivers that are there. What role do you think? I mean, it's almost certainly not going to be a case of if you're not in the car, you're going to be like watching TV or something like that. I'd imagine that a lot of the teammates are very nearby to the pods and keeping an active eye on the race as it unfolds.
I'm waiting for camping tents to be brought in for the 24 hours of Spa later on this year in late June. But yeah, you can definitely see where everyone's got their little camps, their little enclosures. I've even seen people with laptops open, courtesy of E-Team Brits team boss, Max Spooner, who I hope will be getting behind the wheel a little bit later on. A few more comments coming in on Facebook. Mr. Chaz Draycott, a very good afternoon to you, buddy. Craig Mason saying fantastic racing from Fordzilla. That was probably before the mistake happened after the first pit stop. So get interactive. I mean, myself and David will happily answer any questions you might have over the course of the next 5 hours, 11 minutes and 40 seconds. But yeah, like I was saying, you've got the camps of people here at the facility here at Milton Keynes. The equipment here is absolutely top class. I've had the opportunity of getting behind the wheel of a sim. It's something I very, very rarely do. But however, it's great to see everyone, having a lot of fun and enjoying everyone's company. And that is the main thing. That's one of the, even though there is prize money for the top 3 at the end of a race event here at Simply Race on the Endurance Series, everyone's here to have fun. There is a prize that goes to just for the winner. Mike Yao has just informed me. So the thing is, there is some prize money up for grabs as well.
Never mind that. We need to hear more about you in a simulator. What track and what car were you driving?
Well, funny enough, it was actually here at Simply Race, and it was tail end of last year. Everyone's gonna freak out and say, why did you choose that track combination, track and car combination? It was the current 330i M Sport before it became the 330e under the new hybrid rules for 2022 for the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. The 330i M Sport at Hockenheim, the current variation of it, 4.574 kilometres, and you'll be pleased to know, David, on pretty much most of the laps I got better and better as the stint went on.
So, 2023 Simply Race Endurance Series team of David Christie, Alex Goldschmiidt, and another possible commentator. Let's get Chaz in. Let's get Chaz Draycott.
You know what? Let's see if we can get Paul Jeffrey involved as well.
Yes. I think he might be too busy in Italy enjoying the sights and sounds over there.
Oh yes, because he was over there with Brendan Lee most recently as well, if memory serves me correctly, because yourself and Chaz were on that broadcast as well.
He was, but it was quite a few entertaining moments. For instance, him on a hot mic when he didn't realise it, referring to himself as everybody loves a bit of Yorkshire meat. That was my highlight of the weekend.
Oh, stop it!
That was well, it's got to be done anyway. Moving on, Rapid Scorpion says that he'll do it. So
Scott Woodwiss. Scott Woodwiss
confirmed another entry. God knows how we're going to do commentary and driving at the same time on the next season of the Simply Race Endurance Series. But my goodness me, if we will try and make it happen now. Back to the race, because believe it or not, despite all the joking and the jesting, there is actually a race going on here, a very serious race halfway through the Simply Race Endurance Series Championship, and the gap with Fordzilla now, curiously, starting to come down a little bit. Now, for the most part of the past 10 minutes, it's been around about 5.5 seconds. Now it's starting to slowly eke away, and I'm wondering if it's just Sancho Rocket Simsport managing that gap, as Fordzilla did in that earlier part of the first stint there. Rocket Sancho Simsport in third position. Now they're about a second ahead of E-Team Brit. Camsport in fifth. Ubarakuda in sixth position. It's then Red Shell Racing down in seventh. Apex Racing in 8th, Cadan Casual Apex in 9th, and Need for Speed down in 10th position. We're about 8 minutes away from our next row of pit stops, and potentially we might even see some driver swaps just now. So from your experience, Alex, what there's so many questions that I want to ask, and I want to try and stretch them out over the 6 hours. The first is about the drivers themselves. How easy is the process for the drivers to switch out from one to the other, and is there a time penalty associated with that?
Well, with regards to drivers, the maximum stint time allowed is no longer than 2 hours. And then they say, well, at least 4 hours of rest or time away from the simulators before continuing. So if you've got, like, say, a 2-driver lineup at, for instance, Team Fordzilla, you might have that Jack Ashton will do hour 1, Charlie Crosland hour 2, and so on and so forth. So at least you don't break that cycle. Swapping the drivers is quite rudimentary. You've just got to make sure that you do it within that pit stop window of when you're having fuel put in, tyres put on if you are double stinting them. And there were times when we had at the 12 Hours of Bud where we actually had teams that had technical issues as well, let's not forget. So these things can happen. A bit like, say, a technical problem on a car in real life. If a sim has an issue, then the team are on hand to get that sorted out as expediently as possible, and then to get them back out onto the virtual recreation of Road America here. So from that aspect, you've got so many different factors to consider when you're deciding is someone going to do like a complete push strategy for 30 minutes, and then you change another driver who goes in for a double stint. There are so many different permutations, and it also depends on the amount of drivers that you actually have as well.
Wow, fascinating insight there. Thank you very much for that, Alex. 5 hours 6 to go then, and again, this is one of the important parts of a 6-hour race here, is that it kind of goes through these different phases, these different what we call transients, the different stages where the drivers and the teams are basically just putting in the laps. They're now just round and round and round, and they're doing it to what's known as a delta, so a preset lap time. That's what they're trying to go for. That is what they work out their fuel strategy on. That's what they work their tyre strategy on. That's what they work their their driver stints based on, working towards that time. So they're not going too slow, but they're not overworking the car either, and it gives them options when it comes into later stages of the race. So when we're on about controlling the pace, that's what we mean, is that they're driving to a set speed, so that they've got enough life in the tyres and enough life left in the fuel tank that they can pull out it moves if they need to, and push that a little bit harder. Talking about pushing a little bit harder, the pressure's starting to ratchet up now on E-Team Brett, because Cam Sport are right on their tail. That gap now just 0.7 of a second between the two of these cars. Now that means that E-Team Brett are falling away from that number 2 Rocket Zancho Sport machine, Sim Sport machine up ahead, by around about 1.8 seconds just behind them. So E-Team Brett's starting to lose a little bit of pace here, and I would argue that it's more so that Rocket Zancho Simsport are starting to find their feet again, and again it's so difficult because you look at the car and you look at the driver in it, and it's, as a commentator, we commentate about what we see on the track, and you have to kind of hesitate and pause thinking, is this the driver that's actually struggling with this track, or is it a case of they're trying to hold on, they're trying to leave a little bit something on the table so that they can change strategy or do something a little bit different? And it's important to remember that if you're not going at 100%, as Alex mentioned about 5 minutes ago, if you're only using the accelerator about 85% of the way down, you're saving that tiny little bit of fuel, almost a marginal bit of fuel, and a bit of fuel that doesn't sound like an awful lot, but if you do that time and time again, lap after lap after lap on several sections of the circuit, that could potentially then start becoming from a marginal amount into laps that you have in your hand that you can stretch out and potentially put in another couple of fast laps and then go through for pit stops. But a couple of minutes away from the second stint of pit stops coming in, Zancho Rocket Simsport still in the lead now. That gap gone up again now, 5.5 seconds over Team Fordzilla here, and Rocket Zancho Simsport in third here. Alex, are you expecting to see any driver swaps then through this through this second stint of pit stops here?
Well, I think Charlie Crossland's behind the wheel of Team Fordzilla at the moment, so it was a quick changeover at the first pit stop between him and Jack Ashton. So, and I've also just spotted the gap is now nearly 5.6 seconds between first and second position. It's ebbing and flowing, as you can see by the timing on your screens, ladies and gentlemen. But the last lap from Team Fordzilla, 1 minute 51.135. So it just goes to show with the way that these cars are handling, plus with the tight technical nature of the circuit. As I said, you're not able to breathe. I was noticing, David, a very interesting factor during free practice. I was seeing that anyone was doing between 3.89 and 3.98 litres of fuel consumption per lap. And when you think about how big these tanks are on these Cadillac DPI VRs, that fuel is being siphoned at a rate of knots, because you haven't got something like, say, the straights that we saw at Bud International Circuit for the 12 hours for the first round of the championship, where we had longer straights, you could use a bit of tow, but here you are braking, turning in, you're applying the throttle gradually so you don't spool up the rear tyres. The ABS setting has to be on the optimum, as CamSport is still within a second of striking distance of E-Team Brit for fourth on the road. David, just wanted to bring your attention to the championship standings coming into this round. Now, at the minute, I'm just looking behind Team Fordzilla, who have a full complement of 75 points, having won both opening first and second rounds. Get this, Barracuda, 57 points in second, CamSport, 56 points in third, Radicals Online, Avanti Racing, 54 apiece, Cadan Casual Apex, E-Team Brit, 47 apiece. So between those particular teams, and I count 5 of them, there is a 10-point spread. So this race is going to be crucial to every single one of these teams' championship push, because we know that the top 7, if memory serves me correctly, will go through into the DPI class, whereas the remaining teams will head into GTE. So we will have a true endurance race on our hands, where we'll have not single class, we will have dual class, and that is going to provide a fantastic spectacle over the 7.004 kilometre Spa-Francorchamps circuit for the last weekend of June. And that's something that everyone can look forward to here here at Simply Race. And now I've just seen that Charlie Crossland has started, he's turned the volume right up to the number 11, let alone 10. He's just been in a 1 minute 50 point treble too. The gap now down to 4.7 seconds as we now hit the top of the hour. And with the way things stand at the moment, the number 3, Rocket Zancho Simsport, have a 4.5 second lead over Team Fordzilla in number 1. Rounding out the top 3 is Zancho Rocket Simsport in the 2, followed by the 15 of E-Team Brit, who are still coming under pressure from CamSport in the number 8, and they round out the top 5. Barracuda, Red Shell Racing, Orange Apex Racing, Cadan Casual Apex, and Necesidad de la Velocidad, which is the full terminology for number 5, or the Necessity for Speed España division, in 10th place, ahead of Avanti Racing and Precision, down in 12th position. So don't forget, if you want to get involved, you want to tag us, it's at Simply Race on multiple different platforms, including Twitter and Instagram, and use the hashtag SRES.
You're such a show-off, Alex. I can't believe you managed to get Need for Speed's name. Just like it rolls off the top of your tongue. It's yeah, quite an impressive feat. But as you said, we hit the top of the hour then. A very warm welcome to anyone that has just tuned in. This is the Simply Race Endurance Series Season 4. This is round 3 of the
David,
Championship. 6 hours of Road America as Barracuda have spun their DPI car. And that is not what they're going to want to see, given that they are probably on an in-lap here just now. Or I would imagine that is exactly what they're going to be doing with that car. That would have been, let's see, that's into turn 8 that they've done that. So that's going to be on the Hurry Downs. turn 7. Very easy to do that, actually. Going wide, getting a wheel onto the grass and spinning the car around. And as Alex mentioned, obviously, very much looking forward to the season finale that take place at Spa. Not only because, obviously, myself and Alex will be together on site at the venue for the 24 hours, and yeah, that is going to be an amazing event. Really looking forward to that one. Barracuda then making their way through Canada Corner, through turn 13, through turn 14, and you would imagine they are potentially not want to put egg on my face there, not going into the pits this time round. So I would imagine then it's going to be one lap at the very most for the majority of these cars. But Alex, I'm wondering if there's a little bit of fuel saving going on for Zancho Rocket Simsport right now. That gap now, in the space of 2 laps, has come down by 1.5 seconds here.
Yeah, Charlie Crossland has gone into the very, very low 1 minute 50s. I was going to say, if you're going to put egg on your face, have you got the scrambled eggs in a saucepan on standby? Just to throw you under the double-decker bus there, mate.
only if you've got a little bit of chili paste in it as well.
Oh, well, there you go. You might have to get that yourself, mate. Yeah, but it was a 1 minute 50.008 Rocket Zancho Simsport, 1 minute 50.404. So, yeah, the gaps are coming down. It's now 3.8 seconds. It's dropping below that now as well. Charlie Crossland took over 2/10 out of Rocket Zancho Simsport in the first sector alone. So it is going to be a little bit closer, but it is going to be dependent on when the next set of pit stops happen, David, as to whether Team Fordzilla, are they going to go a little bit longer in this stint? That's the biggest. That's the big question right now.
Yeah, it certainly is. And Charlie Crossland absolutely lighting the torch paper on that machine just now in the Fordzilla. And this is what I love about that driver. We've made comment about how unpredictable Charlie's performances can be. If you tilt him or if he feels aggrieved, he will absolutely send it. As we see, a huge moment into turn 3 for Avanti Racing there. That was very late on the brakes, kept hold of it and then struggled to get that car back under control as Fordzilla into the pits there. But I mean, this performance, this stint right now from Charlie Crossland, that is absolutely what he is known for. He can just properly send that car. A brilliant effort there, and I've got no doubt that is going to help their efforts no end whatsoever. Zancho Simsport, though, still out in that machine then. They stay out for another lap there. Rocket Simsport then move up into second, Camsport in third, Barracuda in fourth position, with Red Shell Racing now up into fifth position. E-Team Brit into the pits then in that sixth place car just now, but again, that's just because of the pit stop. So Fordzilla out of the pits then, and here we go, Alex. This is going to be all up in the air for the next couple of minutes here.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on Fordzilla as they come out of pit lane. So they were in second. Charlie Crossland had taken a little bit of time out of them, but keep your eyes on the number 2 car, Zancho Rocket Simsport. They've just taken 8/10 out of the number 3 car. So it is Rocket Zancho Simsport versus Zancho Rocket Simsport. The gap between them, 8.6 seconds, but Charlie Crossland, as you said, was lighting the PH torch paper right there and then, as more cars coming into the pits as we speak. So yeah, another set of pit stops happening, and that is number 5, Necessity for Speed, Espana division, as we're now going to nickname them throughout the rest of the season, if they're going to be doing the other 2 rounds as well. Avanti Racing coming to the pits from P9 on the road. E-Team Brit running in 7th position behind Team Fordzilla. So they are on their first couple of, I wouldn't say the words treacherous outlaps, David, but it's the ones where they've just really got to bring everything up to temperature as we get a nice shot, side-on shot of the Team Fordzilla car, the number 1. The brakes glowing incredibly hotter as they go through the apex, and just really calm, just getting those tyres up to temperature. So it's all about how it all happens. And now the de facto leader at the moment with 4 hours and 53 and 35 to go is Barracuda, as both the number 2 and the number 3, Zancho Rocket Simsport and Rocket Zancho Simsport, followed by Camsport and Red Shell Racing, are also into pit lane. So the pit stop's starting to happen as one of the leading two cars as... Oh, now that might have been the number 3 that just had... that would have been the Rocket Sancho SimSport car coming out of the pits, having Cadan Casual Apex going around the outside of them going into turn 1, but the number 3 car, the driver behind the wheel of that one, did the very right thing, lifted off the gas, let Cadan go past, and not to cause them any problems going through T1.
Oh, that's a huge undercut done by Zancho Rocket SimSport. That's a 29.7 second pit stop there. So they've massively underfueled that car to make sure that they hold on to that position. I would imagine that that gap is going to be up to around about 15 seconds between Zancho SimSport and Team Fordzilla as well. And Cadan Casual Apex, they're actually having to let that car by there. That is the right thing to do, because I don't believe that would have been for position. Yep, they're a lap down, so that is going to be the just double check. Yeah, that's going to be the Rocket Sancho SimSport machine that gets up past them just now. So again, everything all up in the air. Ubarracuda currently provisionally in the lead of this race here, and with Zancho SimSport and Fordzilla as Ubarracuda into the pits then, Zancho SimSport and Fordzilla duking it out on track here. And now we're not really going to see them together on track at all now, because it looks like a massively different pit stop strategy taken by Zancho Rocket SimSport here, Alex. And it's going to be fascinating to watch how this one pans out over the next 25 minutes.
You know, one of the things I'm going to do now is having the benefit of being on site. What can I check? Fuel levels, David. I'll be right back.
No problem. Right, so our man on the ground is away going to do spy things. A little bit of espionage is going on right there. But yeah, I'm really interested to hear what Alex finds out on his little discovery mission to see exactly what the fuel levels are. I'm fully expecting, you know, like when you watch the F1 and they do the grid walk and you get the team, the crewmates and the team staff standing hovering over the screens and like trying to hide the fuel levels and things like that. That's what I'm expecting. Alex Goldschmiidt is going to have his work cut out. I've got absolutely no doubt about that. But 4 hours 50 minutes left to go in this 6-hour race here at Road America. And what a race we have got on our hands just now. If you've just joined us, it's Zancho Rocket SimSport, the number 3 machine, out in front of Fordzilla. We'll get updated times once the timing tower refreshes itself. It's Rocket Zancho SimSport in 3rd position ahead of Team Brit, who get the jump done and they get back into that 4th position then with Camsport in 5th. Ubarracuda in 6th. It's then Red Shell Racing in 7th position, and then in 8th position is Orange Apex Racing, Cadan Casual Apex in 9th, and then it's going to be in 10th position. I will find out for you just now because it's just showed up as racing just now. But as we said, with this stage in the race just gone in, then you can see that gap now. 13.8 seconds, so I was very close when I said about 14-15 seconds there. That is obviously an artificial gap that's been brought in by a difference in strategy, and yeah, I'm really curious to see how that one pans out. But Team Brit now just 0.6 of a second behind that number 2 car. And Alex, what news have you got?
Right, okay. Jack Ashton, I've just spoken to, they are going ultra aggressive. The thing is that you'll find there'll be a slight disparity when a team decides not to change tyres. So that's probably where the undercut has happened, David.
That's a great spot. Thank you very much for that, Alex. And not taking tyres then, that is going to hurt them massively. And I can already see Fordzilla start to eke down that gap. They can absolutely push. And as Alex pointed out there, they're going to smell blood in the water because we've got a yellow out in Sector 3. That's very briefly brought back in. So usually with these wide runoff areas here at Road America, that's usually what it is. It's just cars running a little bit wide here. But Alex, while you're out and about there, what is the mood there in the venue and the facility with the teams? You mentioned it was very quiet with the drivers, and I wonder if there's a little bit more noise just now, or is it still just as quiet as it was?
Yeah, there is some laughter I can hear in the background as well from where I am at the minute. So yeah, I think it's just I think probably, what was it, 45 minutes in, there was a there was a big sort of bit of laughter happening from by the simulators, which is quite good. So yeah, the thing is that there is banter happening. For those people at home wondering, what is it going to be? What is it like? Can we join in? You can go to simplyrace.co.uk/SRES and get yourself signed up for the next round. That's all I can say. Because if you want to experience it firsthand, it's great because everyone's able to talk to one another. There's no, as you and I both know, being behind a webcam and having your headset cans on with a microphone, a boom mic on it, it's not quite the same feeling as actually being down here. And I know for a fact, mate, we're going to have an absolute hoot. And for June for the 24-hour finale. But yeah, I did. There is still a serious tinge in the air. You can cut that like a hot knife through butter.
Absolutely, and it's fascinating to watch as well. We see the live pictures, as Alex was on about, from the venue itself, and it's very much a social affair, and it makes it so different to everything that you see, because obviously there's tons and tons and tons of sim racing events, high profile sim racing events, team sim racing events that happen on almost a daily basis, but there's very few that are actually in person in a venue like down at Simply Race in Milton Keynes. And it's what Alex was saying there about all of the drivers able to kind of get together, have a bit of banter with each other, but even just meeting up with their teammates. As we said earlier on, it's been a very long 2 years, and just being able to get out and meet up and have a couple of large colas together, since that's obviously what our professional racing drivers are drinking this afternoon.
Or maybe a Red Bull or two.
And just enjoy, having this fun race. It really brings it back to the vibe of what Simply Race was trying to achieve here by starting this Simply Race Endurance series. And while it can continue in a remote sense, if need be, really it does shine in this sort of in-person setting, Alex. And you've mentioned it quite a few times before on previous broadcasts about how heated things come towards the end of the race here. And I'm just noticing here is that Cam's floor, as we've got another lapped car going a lap down there. What has been your sort of biggest memory from a Simply Race Endurance Series event? What's one of the scenes that's happened in person that you vividly remember?
I still remember Radicals Online trying to go for the W in the first round of the championship earlier on, and Callum Cripps and his banditry behind the wheel as always. We did have a bit of a giggle about that earlier on today, but just seeing drivers push, and you can actually see, rather than sort of seeing it from a Zoom call or a Skype feed, you're actually seeing it in person. You're seeing the perspiration, you're seeing the exertion, you're seeing everything happen in front of you. And as a LAN event, that's what we call it here in racing in a sim sport, sim racing term, where people are physically on site. Everyone's got the same equipment to work with. They're on the same platform. They're on the same circuit, same machinery. And it showcases how hard drivers are willing to push. At least the good thing is, David, with sim racing, there's no virtual invoices involved.
I'm not so sure about that one.
Well,
certainly from the professional team's point of view, but yeah, you're right. From my real life racing experience, it can be a very, very costly affair and a very time consuming affair as well. Whereas at least with this, you can walk home at the end of the night and not have to worry about the state of the virtual car that you've hired out for the day. Well, yeah, that's actually, I never thought of that as a sales angle for Simply Race. Maybe they should target that instead of having to take out track day insurance and all that sort of stuff. But nonetheless, we get back to the action here. Oh my goodness me, Alex, I'm reading between the lines here. I'm seeing Fordzilla taking almost a second a lap out of Zansho Rocket Sim Sport. Are they going to be able to catch up? Because they've got, 14 minutes left, maybe 15 minutes left before the next cycle of pit stops here. and that gap is coming down hand over fist. Do you think Sancho Rocket Simsport, from what you're seeing here, maybe shot themselves in the foot by not taking those extra tyres?
Well, there's another battle I need to bring your attention to, David. 3rd and 4th at the moment. The number 2 car, Sancho Rocket Simsport, versus the number 15 of E-Team Brit. It has been fluctuating anywhere between 6 tenths to probably, what is it now, 0.8 of a second. So E-Team Brit looking rather handy. I mean, remember what happened in the first 10-15 minutes, as I said earlier on, the 6 hours of Imola. E-Team Brit were leading at one point, and who was behind the wheel at that point? Martin Buchan.
Well, the less said about that, better. I mean, we do love our good Scottish friend, Martin Buchan, but yeah, he does a brilliant job, and I try to downplay that at every opportunity, just through absolute jealousy of talent that I will almost certainly never, ever be able to replicate out on track. But no, a great team that they've got there at E-Team Brit. Some good performances, and another strong performance today. They are definitely within a shout of getting that podium position from Rocket Sancho Simsport, although I do believe the number 2 is going to make them work very hard for it. So if you've just joined us, it is still Sancho Rocket Simsport in the lead of the halfway point of this race in the championship. I'll try and rephrase that, shall I? In the lead of the race at this halfway point in the championship is what I meant to say, because of course this is a 6-hour race and we don't hit the halfway point until another hour and 40 minutes. Calm down, David. Fordzilla in second place. Now, they were leading that first stint and have just been overtaken during the pit stops from Sancho Rocket Simsport, so they are now down in second place, but they are catching up very quickly. No tyres for Sancho Rocket Simsport, and that could be hurting them very much indeed. Rocket Sancho Simsport in third position, coming under increasing pressure from E-Team Brit, and that's deep into turn number 5. And hello to E-Team Brit, because that is the pressure dial turned up to 11. And here we go then. This is going to be a fascinating battle there, because that gap was about 1.2 seconds. It's now down to just 0.2 of a second here as they come through the rest of the circuit here. That's through 8, then through 9, through the carousel, and that E-Team Brit machine looking tight and absolutely on rails right now. Barracuda in 6th position, with Red Shell Racing in 7th, Apex Racing in 8th position, and then Cadan Casual in 9th position as well. Here we go then, on board with E-Team Brit down in towards Canada Corner, and again just a little bit hesitant to get back on that throttle there, up through 13 then on the run down to this final corner here into 14. That car is looking so aggressive. They want to take that position, but the gap up to 0.5 of a second here. Is it going to be a run down into turn 1, I wonder? But as we said, with just under 4 3/4 hours left to go here, Alex, E-Team Brit is a team that we are very familiar on. Obviously, we worked together on their virtual championship that they won as well, and we're very familiar with the drivers and the people involved behind the scenes on that one. Do you know what sort of preparation? We might actually be able to speak with Max actually at some point about the amount of preparation that they put in for these races here.
Well, funny enough, David, I spoke with Hamish Easner, one of their drivers who's here today. Actually came down yesterday for a practice session to get reacclimatised with the DPI, with the circuit, and with R-Factor 2. Because E-Team Brit at the moment have really upped their social media presence. They've gone into GT Sport, if memory serves me correctly. I mean, yeah, the championship that you and I both work on. The E-Team Brit GT Challenge, holding its final round of the championship for Season 3, February 7th, funnily enough, is the circuit where we hosted the second round of the Simply Race Endurance Series, Imola. So the amount of preparation that's been happening, there's a lot more, I know for a fact, having spoken, I speak to Max on a regular basis anyway, that the amount of preparation, the amount of drivers that are now coming on board, the amount of platforms that they're going on, they did a really good job on their split for the iRacing Daytona 24 Hours. So there is a lot of hard work going behind the scenes, and you know, there's always that crossover. I mean, if anyone might remember Jan Mardenborough when he won GT Academy back in the early 2010s, and he went on to race in Super GT for Nissan and also race at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in the Nissan GTR LM Nismo project, which was something very, very unusual in terms of its configuration. So you can see that there is a crossover between sim racing and real life racing, where drivers who can show great prowess behind the wheel of a simulator on a variety of different platforms, you can make that transfer over into real life racing as well. Lucas Ordonez, as well as another one, a former GT Academy graduate. So there is that crossover. And this is where it comes back to that point you made earlier, that sim racing isn't going to replace real-life motorsport, but it's part and parcel of the main fabric of what we now have today.
That's an interesting point, and it's one that I've mentioned a few times, and again, it's important to add that clarification in, and it's just purely because having worked at a real-life racing circuit, we've got a car facing the wrong way, a little bit of drama there. Get an idea on who that was. It certainly wasn't one of the front runners. I believe that was one of the lapped cars that was going speeding across the track there. But the point about the difference in real life racing and sim racing, and sim racing was often scoffed at by those involved in real life racing as it was a just a silly little thing. It was a throwaway thing. It was a toy. It was a game. It was for people, it wasn't to be taken seriously. And then the conversation started on about, is sim racing going to replace real life racing? And I was always really hesitant to that. I've always had, a vested interest in sim racing, but it never will. And at that time, I thought it wouldn't do. We'll quickly cut to a replay here then. And I've got a feeling that this is just going to be a little wiggle on the inside of the grass here into turn number 8. And it's just too late on the brakes and spins the car round. Very, very easy to do, and that's exactly what happened. So yeah, nothing too major happening there for that number 13. Spins the wheels up, and gets going again. Just to finish off the point though, the conversation about, is sim racing going to replace real racing? No, it was never ever going to replace real racing. It's not meant to replace real racing. As I alluded to at the start, the simple fact that we've all realised now is the fact that whether you're a real life racer or a sim racer, we are absolute addicts. Okay, we would literally do this stuff 24/7 if we could. And sim racing allows real life racers to get that buzz, to get that excitement and that thrill whenever they want it, at a price that's very, very suitable for them. They can do real racing if they want, they can do sim racing if they want, and if it's sim racing, you can do that to your heart's content for a very, very low price. Talking of which, head over to simplerace.co.uk, check out the deals they've got there, and get yourself involved with some of their special nights that they've got going on as well. But Alex, 4 hours 35, we're about 10 minutes away from some pit stops.
Yes, indeed, and the gap is coming down between Rocket, Zancho, SimSport and Team Fordzilla. The last lap around for Rocket, Zancho, SimSport, 1 minute 53 flat. Team Fordzilla, 1 minute 50.246. So the gap now under 7 seconds between the top two. Zancho, Rocket, SimSport in third. E-Team Brit in fourth position and is still within earshot. You really need to be within probably the best part of maybe 3 to 4 tenths. If you're 6 tenths off the car in front, that's going to be a bit difficult to try and claw that back coming out of turn 14 and going through into turn number 1. There's a little bit of kick up of dust coming through the exit of the first corner underneath the bridge, which has the simplyrace.co.uk website on there. So effectively, E-Team Brit are keeping them under pressure at the moment, so the battle for third still very much weighing in the minds of E-Team Brit. They are looking to hopefully try and get points in comparison to Barracuda in the championship standings. And the way things stand, E-Team Brit and Camsport could be ahead of Barracuda by the end of this round. Good to see Helke von der Heen saying, "Let's go Camsport, get it, send it." That's what we like to hear. Bit of send it never goes amiss. Also, Red Shell Racing have just put in their fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 50.337. They are 5.6 seconds behind Barracuda in the battle for sixth and 7th position Avanti Racing, Cadan Casual Apex, Orange Apex Racing, Necesidad de la Velocidad in 11th, and Precision Racing rounding out the top 12, the 12 positions. But with the way things stand at the moment, it is still even Stevens with 4 hours, 33 minutes and 9 seconds on the clock for the halfway point of this season, Season 4 of the Simply Race Endurance Series at the 6 Hours of Road America. And it has been an enthralling one so far, but it's going to be a case of who will come out on top, who's going to be on the top step of the rostrum. But we will find out very, very soon in about the next 4.5 hours with myself, Alex Goldschmiidt, and David Christie. So if you do want to get involved, hopefully we might see a return of the Simply Race British Championships, a championship that I've had the pleasure of commentating on, as Cam Sport, I think, have just got past Cadan Casual Apex, who go down a lap in comparison. So Cam Sport running in the 8 car in 5th position as things stand at the moment.
Certainly is. And just on that note, obviously all the different championships, Alex, that Simply Race do, as much as I enjoy being part of the commentary team, I am thoroughly jealous of taking part. I'm definitely up for getting myself involved, so I hope that you're going to be saying nice things. In fact, I'll pay you to say nice things, Alex, about me as I take to the track. Or more importantly, just avoid whenever I do something wrong. That would be super, super handy. Right, back to the race at hand though. And Alex, we have got some huge developments because we might only be about 6 minutes away from our pit stops. But look at Fordzilla. They have taken 10 seconds out of that gap to Rocket Zancho Simsport. And I get the feeling that they are going to be very, very handicapped right now because Fordzilla could easily just decide not to take tyres on this one and they would be away with that lead of the race. But again, we'll have to see. Fascinating little battle unfolding here right now, and again E-Team Brit still on the tail of Zancho Rocket Simsport. They have just been incredible today.
The consistency from E-Team Brit in the second sector alone, they're a 10th quicker than Zancho Rocket Simsport, but yeah, Team Fordzilla have been on an absolute tear. They want that lead back, and with nearly 90 minutes completed of this 6-hour race, they've still got all this strategic motorsport game of chess in endurance racing. But one of the biggest things that we've seen is the fact that the drivers have been watching their P's and Q's. There's only been one penalty given to Precision Racing for that lap 1 incident. But we know that over the course of endurance race, through the races you and I have commentated on together, when you get into that, considering we're on the virtual American soil here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, when you get to the bottom of the night, that's when it really counts. It's about those that are able to stand up and be noticed at the right point at the right time. And if you've got your chess pieces in the right place, you will be able to put them exactly where you need to, and then it's all of a sudden checkmate, game over. And
it's all about leading up to that point. It's all about all the different moves that get them into that position. Using that chess analogy, using checkmate analogy, it's about the moves that lead up to that just as much as that finishing move. It's about setting up the performance and, like you said earlier, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, making sure that every single bit that you've done or that you could have done has been taken care of. And that's exactly what we're seeing here today with the likes of Rocket Zancho Simsport and Team Fordzilla, with Zancho Rocket Simsport and E-Team Brit, even down to Barracuda and Red Shell Racing. They're still duking it out as well. And Cam Sport, I feel really happy for them that they've got a good top 5 position just now. But it must be lonely out there. You're about 8 seconds rather behind E-Team Brit, and you're about 10 seconds ahead of Barracuda. From personal experience, Alex, I struggle when I'm on the track like that because I'm quite slow. So I like having a car to help guide me around the circuit. And for some of these drivers, they actually do prefer having a bit of clean space in front of them.
Well, if you're a hare, I'm a tortoise, mate, when it comes to sim racing. That's 100% guaranteed.
And do you know what, Alex? Together we will be unstoppable.
War betide the boy, as Billy Connolly once used to say. Yeah, but I think at the end of it all, yeah, Cam Sport might be looking a little bit lonely, 9.1 seconds behind E-Team Brit. But as I said, it's about hitting a target. If something happens to a team in front, the biggest thing that's going to happen, David, is the teams behind are going to be licking their lips with hunger, because as soon as you become prey to a wolf pack, watch out, because the storm might be coming your way. And we've seen that before. We saw dramas at the first round of the championship. We saw dramas last time out at Imola in late November. As I said before we went green, the championship is halfway through. I think with the way things are, if Fordzilla have a maximum points haul of 100 going into the next round, the thing is, there's still 150 points on the table. So, Fordzilla could be leading the championship going into the 24 hours of Spa. But then there's 100 points. If there's a team within that window and something happens, I think the championship will go down to the wire, but it just depends on who is going to be the one that's going to basically put the thumbs down towards Team Fordzilla and say, right, you guys have been absolutely brilliant so far. You've won the first 2 rounds of the championship. We're here not just to make up numbers, and that's exactly what Rocket Zancho Simsport and Zancho Rocket Simsport are doing. But when you look at it, they're effectively the 2 pieces of bread in the sandwich, and Team Fordzilla is the meat in the middle right now, as things stand, with 4 hours and 26 minutes and 45 seconds to go on the clock. But being at this point in the race, David, we're now in a nice rhythmic flow. Drivers are, they're comfortable. But then when you have to circumnavigate your way through backmarker traffic like E-Team Brit, Zancho Rocket Simsport are trying to get a bit of a wiggle from the back end of Orange Apex Racing. I think it was turn 8 they were just going through just then. That would probably put any normal person under duress, who might be behind, as Orange Apex Racing get out of the way of E-Team Brit rather expediently. So good call there, because one of the things that you don't want to have happen, and we've seen this before, where a back marker makes a little bit of a mistake and it takes out one of the leaders, and that can be, if that happens, then straight away, first thing, race control will be over it like a rash. Second thing will be that the team that's been hard done by will be absolutely fuming, but they'll have to calm themselves, compose themselves, and keep pushing forward.
Certainly, very much the case. And just watching here, we're a couple of minutes away from the pit stops here, and Alex, I'm going to send you out on a mission very soon, because I'm wanting to head over to the Team Fordzilla pod, more importantly Charlie Crossan, and find out if he's found that NOS button on the car, because that is the only excuse that Team Fordzilla have for that rapid pace that that car has right now in that number 1 machine. 3.2 seconds now the gap, and it's coming down very, very quickly. Regardless of how this race finishes, this individual stint alone, absolutely incredible pace being shown, not only from Team Fordzilla but from Rocket Zancho Simsport as well, with the fact that the 2 of them collectively 12.8 seconds ahead of at least the entire part of the field. We've already lapped at least, about 5 of the 12 cars that are taking part in this halfway stage of the championship. So an amazing effort, Alex, and I'm honestly really curious as to how this is going to unfold. The other thing as well is that Rocket Zancho Simsport might decide to go back to a normal stint here, and Team Fordzilla will think, well, we're just going to keep a normal stint as well. We know we've got the pace and take tyres. At which point Fordzilla have then got it in the bag that they could take tyres out. But my thinking now is, have Rocket Zancho Simsport, with the fact that they've been able to survive, undercutting and pulling such a short stint here, think maybe that gives them ideas towards the latter half of the race here.
Well, considering the fact that Charlie Crossan is taking chunks of time out of Rocket Zancho Simsport. Last laps around, because they're going through Sector 3 as we speak. Okay, Charlie Crossan, 1 minute 50.0. Rocket Zancho Simsport, 1:50.8. You do the math. Team Fordzilla in the pits now. So they have decided to bring it in, and we're going to see how long it's going to take before that car goes out of pit lane. So Team Fordzilla will as soon as the timer starts ticking away, which it is doing now, so it's about 15 seconds to get to your pit stop box approximately where Team Fordzilla are on pit lane. And I'm now going to just keep your eyes glued to how long this pit stop is going to take, because this will give us an indication of whether they are going to stick a new set of boots, because if it goes below 30 they'll be just sticking fuel in it. But Team Fordzilla on the last pit stop, David, I noticed short fuel by about 5 litres in comparison with the leaders, and now you can see they're taking on a bit more fuel, and they'll be taking on tyres. So this is going to be rather crucial for Team Fordzilla. And how do Rocket Zancho Simsport accordingly respond?
Well, we're about to find out. That's a full pit stop then, 43.2 seconds for Fordzilla. And that means that we've now got the number 3 and the number 2 cars still to come in. So Fordzilla, one of the first teams to blink in terms of this next round of pit stops here. And I think we're now on to our third round of pit stops. We've got a penalty, Alex. Do you have any information on that one for Precision Racing B?
That could be for track limits if that is just for standardised. Stop sending me DMs on Discord, David. that'll be the automated server. That was track limits. I've just been told by Grant Army, so that'll be the automated track cut servers coming in. So
I was sending you a little message there. It was just when you were on about, as we see tons of cars coming in here, that's E-Team Britain Camsport into pit lane, Zancho Rocket Simsport, excuse me, not Camsport. It was when you were mentioning about a back marker taking out the leader. My partner is getting into drawing recently, and she loves making these little drawings of when I'm doing the commentary, and that was exactly it, as you see the picture there. On one of the times we were doing, I think it was it wasn't SRO, it was SimGrid.
That probably would have been Endurance Cup season. Yeah,
exactly, that had happened. The leader had got tangled up with one of the back markers, and it happens so often, it's actually scary. And on that point, I mean, it's a very difficult thing, because obviously the drivers are all involved in their own races, Alex, and you know, at the end of the day, it can be very difficult knowing that it's the race leader coming up behind you when you're in the heat of the battle with someone for position.
Yeah. Speaking, I mean, I've just had a look at that picture. It's absolutely priceless. Absolutely priceless, with a customary phrase that normally gets heard whenever that happens. And David's normally screaming at the top of his lungs. My eardrums get a quick, short burst of ringing straight afterwards as well. But yeah, I think the thing is that with this kind of event we have here at Simply Race, it's a very, very different feel together, because everyone's on site. People are going to have conversations, and the thing is that if you are on your own sim rig at home, it's a very different atmosphere altogether, because you're in your own bubble. Here, everyone's in the same boat, and so things do get discussed accordingly. Leaders now in the pits, Mr. Christie.
Yep, saying that now. Thank you very much, Alex. So we'll keep an eye on this then. Team Fordzilla might have done enough there. It was a 43.1 second pit stop for Team Fordzilla. That is what they were deciding to roll with. Are we going to see another very quick pit stop then for Rocket Zancho Simsport? The pit stop is underway, and again, if it's under 30 seconds, as Alex pointed out, then they are not taking tyres. I would imagine they have to take tyres at this point, given that they double stinted last time round. I would imagine surely they have to keep that thing with a fresh set of tyres. We'll find out in just a second. They are still in the pits, and that looks like it's an ominous sign, surely, that Team Fordzilla are going to come screaming out of the gates then, as they come through Canada Corner, through turns 13, on the run down to 14. The final corner awaits. This is going to be very, very close then, as Rocket Zancho Simsport are still in the pits. They leave now, but surely this hand signs on a plate. It's not. It's going to be very, very close, Alex, as both of them come out the pits, and it's going to be together almost on the same point near the track.
Well, now Team Fordzilla have got the target in sight, and the sights are locked on with the crosshairs, Mr. Christie, because straight away, going through the exit of turn 1 and into 2, Did you notice the little side-to-side lateral wiggle there from Rocket Sancho Simsport, trying to get an extra couple of degrees of temperature quickly into those new fresh tyres? And now the gap is going to be rather close. I think it's about 1.7 seconds between the pair at the moment as things stand. So we now have a true battle royale. It's car versus car, it's driver versus driver, team versus team. And this is going to be rather paramount to what we have in store over the next 4 hours and 18 minutes. And you can bet your bottom dollar here, Mr. Christie, that Team Forzilla will be right at the back wing, probably in the next few laps. Yellow out in Sector 3 for the briefest of moments.
Very much the case, but that's a fascinating turn of events. And this now goes back to exactly what we saw as a result of Forzilla running wide that extra little bit as they came out into the back out onto the track after the first pit stop and handing that lead over to Sancho Rocket Simsport. Provisional leaders Barracuda into pit lane then, and they come out of the lead. They still had to pit anyway, so they were never actually in contention at this point in time, but they led because they're slightly behind on strategy. So again, we'll let everyone get past in their pit stops, and then we'll refresh the timing window, which will give us our timings back again. But Rocket Sancho Simsport then still in the lead of this race, ahead of Team Forzilla, just about a second and a half now, no more than that in the battle just now. And we come to the top of another hour then. We've almost done 2 hours, and I wonder, do we have any driver changes from what you can see there, Alex?
Charlie Crossland's in still for Team Forzilla. Yellow out in sector number 2. By the way, David, there's just shown up on the timing. Barracuda dropping down towards 6th position, but look at the closure that Team Forzilla have right now. The battle is very much on. The gap is now 7/10 of a second as they go through turn number 8 and into the right-hander here at 9. And this is where it's going to be crucial, because let's not forget, I've just seen a personal best first sector. Okay, get this, David. Oh, mistake there from Rocket Sancho Simsport. Team Forzilla swarming all over the back of them right now. The gap is now 3/10. That mistake from the number 3 Rocket Sancho Simsport was quite clearly what they did not need at that particular moment. And now you're going to see how ruthless Charlie Crossland will be in just a couple of moments' time. They're coming through into the final technical part of the circuit, very sweeping lefts and rights. And you can see that Rocket Sancho Simsport trying to put the car on the apex, running a little bit wide, a little bit of a sideways jaunt to the left on the back end of the Team Forzilla car, but they're coming through into the final couple of corners of the lap here. And I would hazard a guess here, because they're going to come through turn 14, and just keep your eyes on the closing rates of speed. The gap is now half a second, and it is closing between first and second position. It's not going to be close enough yet, but I would hazard a guess, David, that probably in the next couple of laps, Team Forzilla will be there up close and personal. Rocket Sancho Simsport to take the lead going through turn 1. Actually, it's going to happen probably a little bit earlier. They're nearly going side by side. Forzilla looking one way, then the other, into the next right-hander. This is mouth-watering stuff, and we are close to hitting the top of hour number 2 out of 6.
Here we go then, Charlie Crossland side by side. This is the run down the moraine sweep into turn 5. It's going to mean that Rocket Sancho Simsport have the inside line for 5. Crossland tries to go around the outside, never going to happen. Tries to get the cut back, gets the better exit out, but it's actually Rocket Sancho Simsport that live to tell the tale another day, and they need to be careful, because this is a man you do not want to get very, very angry behind you, because yeah, he is going to take that place whether you like it or not, and you can see how much Forzilla are harassing, pushing and prodding at the back end of Rocket Sancho Simsport here. It's a brilliant little scrap that we've got, and we haven't had to wait too long to watch something absolutely explode out here on track, and that's exactly what we've seen here. And now I wonder if Charlie Crossland is now deciding to play a different bit of chess here. He knows that they've got that number 3 car in front of them, Alex. Absolutely rattled. They are all over the place right now in terms of having to push as hard as they can, and I don't think on raw pace alone they've got the match on Fordzilla, but we'll see, because it could be a case of strategy. Out 13 then on the run down towards turn number 14, the final corner, much closer and a much smoother exit for Charlie Crossland is going to be the run up the start finish straight. There's going to be a lot of weaving you're going to see across the start finish straight here as they move to the outside then. They're almost side by side as they come across the line then. There's contact, a little bit of side by side wheel action here going on. The brakes into turn 1 then. It's going to be Rocket Zancho Simsport still in the lead of this race. God knows how he was able to hold on to that one ahead of Team Fordzilla's Charlie Crossland. Charlie is like an absolute shark right now, Alex, and this is exactly what we wanted to see here.
The Jaws theme has been running in my head for the last 2 laps, and it's still continuing onwards, because Charlie Crossland looking towards the outside through into the next left-hander. Nearly a bit of wheel arch banging there between the pair. Oh, a little bit of sideways towards the right-hand side on the back end of the Team Fordzilla car, going through 7 and into 8. And the thing is that Charlie Crossland is going to wait for the prime opportunity, David. That is going to be coming out of the right-hander at turn number 14. That's going to be his key moment to strike. Keep close to the car in front. Pick up as much aerodynamic efficiency as you can, despite the dirty, turbulent air coming off of the number 3 Rocket Zancho Simsport car. And Charlie Crossland, when he came out of turn 14 last time around, David, was just about 0.2 of a second adrift. And you can see that he's just going to he's going to now hold back a little bit. And one of the big things here, coming through the sweeping complex of rights and lefts here, Charlie Crossland knows where to hit the brakes and can use the number 3 Rocket Zancho Simsport car as a yardstick. And I don't use that term often. And what that means is that they can keep an eye on the braking points of what's happening with the car in front. Now into turn number 14 they go. Going to put the power down in these fantastic Cadillac DPIs. Gap is now closing. 0.4. It's not going to be as close as it was last time around, but Charlie Crossland is going to be within 3.5 tenths, maybe even make that 3 tenths. Look at the closing speed right now. He was taking a little look with the nose of the front end of the car going into turn number 1, but thought better of it. And a little bit of kick up of dust from the left rear wheel of the number 1 car of Team Fordzilla as they head into turns 2, 3 and 4. Absolutely mouth-watering stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got one phrase to say. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, absolutely the case here. It's the Simply Race Endurance Series round 3 here, the 6 hours of Road America. That's right, another 4 hours and 10 minutes of this, as we see a little bit later on the brakes for Rocket Zancho Simsport. Almost lost for words there, because it looked like Team Fordzilla having a little bit of a wiggle here as well, and they've got another lapped car. I think this is the Orange Apex Racing machine that they're waiting to put 2 laps down just now. We'll get confirmation on that in just a second. That's certainly what it looks like, but again, it's so difficult to call this one right now, because there's so many things that this could be. This could be Rocket Zancho Simsport right now just really trying to frustrate that Fordzilla car behind them, just trying to do that fine balance between pushing but defending at the same time. And Fordzilla right now are absolutely rampant with Charlie Crossland behind the wheel of that car, you've got to say. And Charlie doing an amazing job. And you're absolutely spot on what you noticed there, Alex. You noticed that from, say, like turn 6, 7, 8 and 9, that Cadillac DPI, it'll back off a little bit, it'll cool itself down, get out the toe, then through 11, through the kink, through Kell Bottoms and through Canada Corner, it catches right back up, and they're going to catch back on to this Orange Apex Racing machine at the worst possible time. Rocket Zancho Simsport are going to catch up to this car on the braking point into turn 1, and this could be big drama in the race then. 4 hours 9 minutes left to go here. Team Fordzilla point.
Oh, the Orange Apex car is off!
Big moment for the Orange Apex Racing machine, so we'll scrub that one off of having any bearing on this battle whatsoever, but that was a big Code Brown moment for Orange Apex Racing Machine, and I'd imagine for Rocket Zancho Simsport as well, because they saw that all unfold in front of them, and I can only imagine they're thinking, please, no. As we see, still into turn 5 then, Charlie Crossland tries to keep into the power, and he's firmly shown into the grass then by Rocket Zancho Simsport. This is an absolute masterclass of defensive driving right now, but Charlie Crossland, I've said before, if you've not seen this young lad drive, then you're in for a little bit of a treat here. What normally happens from Charlie, certainly from what we see, is he'll last about 5 to 10 laps of being like this, of being robustly defended, shall we say, and then the elbows come out, and then it's maybe less elbows, more of a crowbar to the face that comes out from Charlie. He is very,
you got the baseball on standby,
ruthless in trying to make it happen. The problem from my experience of Charlie as well is that he sometimes gets a little bit overly frustrated, but this performance that he's doing today, this is proper top quality stuff, and this is what I love to see from Charlie Crossland in that Team Fordzilla machine, coming through 13 on the run down to 14 again. And Alex, I mean, this is just incredible racing right now.
Right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, in the tow, in the slipstream, the gap is less than a tenth as they come across the stripe. 93 thousandths was the margin. Fordzilla to the outside, heading into turn number 1. Rocket Zancho Simsport, Crossland puts it round the outside to take the lead with 4 hours and 7.5 minutes to go. But Rocket Zancho Simsport looking up the inside, going through into the very next corner. This is really close, but Fordzilla have got it. Brilliantly done.
Absolutely incredible, and I literally just said that. I said that he takes no prisoners, and that's exactly what he's done there. Charlie Crossland round the outside takes the lead of the race, and the pace that car has got. Do not be surprised at the end of this stint, in the next 17 minutes to 25 minutes, do not be surprised to see that gap opening up to 4 to 5 seconds. Potentially with the pace that he's got. Look at the gap already now that Charlie Crossland has taken. That was an amazing move round the outside. Avanti Racing, just to confirm, getting a penalty there, and presumably that is going to be for track limits. But I mean, Alex, that is part and parcel of what we see with Fordzilla, part and parcel as well of what we see time and time again from Charlie Crossland.
It's what I like to call, it's an M&M. It's round the outside. He positioned that car perfectly to Charlie Crossland. And you know what? I have to give credit, due diligence here to Rocket Zancho Simsport. They kept their oars out to try and stop Crossland from going around the outside. But we know how capable this youngster is. And the funny thing is that when you look at the ages of Simsport racing talent coming through, Charlie Crossland, the likes of Gregor Schill, Artur Camara, Robbie Stapleford, James Baldwin is still a young man, even with the amount of success he's had in esports as well. And there are drivers that have done sim racing for a very, very long time. The likes of Enzo Benito, the likes of Kevin Siggy, Niles Nyox, the list goes on and on and on. And we just got an absolute masterclass there to take the lead with just over 4 hours to go. And the gap was closing. I did say that you needed to be within 3 to 2.5 tenths of the car in front. And Charlie Crossland put the car where he needed to at the right place and thought, you know what, I'm not going to go traditional. I'm going to go around the outside and I'm going to make it stick. And he did that. The gap now, David, is nearly 1.8 seconds.
Outrageous stuff. Outrageous that he's managed to take such a gap in such a small amount of time. That's what, 1.5 laps. And brilliant stuff to see Charlie Crossland way out in front. Right, let's bring you up to speed with some of the other battles, because contrary to what we've just been seeing for the past 5 minutes, there are actually several other cars involved in this race. It's third place currently for Zancho Rocket Simsport. Now, they were under a lot of pressure from E-Team Brett. That gap has now dissipated and it is starting to ebb out quite a lot now. That looks like 2.5 seconds to 2.7 seconds between the number 2 and the number 15 car for third and fourth position. Camsport into fifth position. They're still holding strong with that one. Sixth position for U Barracuda, and then seventh position for Red Shell Racing. Karan Casual Apex in 8th position. And then as well, ninth position is Need for Speed in the ninth position, as I said. And then it is Precision Racing by Boa Esports in 10th, rounding out your top 10. And they are 2 laps behind Cadan Casual Apex, and Need for Speed are a lap down as we speak. So the gap now has eked out to over 2 seconds between your race leader and Rocket Zancho Simsport as predicted. Just a couple of laps ago. If you've just tuned in, as I said, a very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Simply Race Endurance Series. This is Season 4. And this is round number 3. It's David Christie here, along with my good man, Alex Goldschmiidt, who is actually there in Milton Keynes just now. Again, to bring you up to speed with what this event is, this is another round of an in-person sim racing championship. Now, what that means is, down in Milton Keynes, the race venue Simply Race, which is a professional esports sim racing facility, where you can basically just rock up and pay to use their equipment there. They organise this event, and all these teams, these sim racing teams, turn up in person in Milton Keynes, and they take part in this race. So the great thing is that anybody can enter. So if you want to take part, you get a couple of your mates round, sign up for it, pay your monies, turn up and have an amazing day out, and you get some semi-skilled commentators like myself and Alex to talk about it over the course of the 6 hours. Maybe you should get a bit of discount for that. I'm not sure. It's still to be discussed, but we love it. It's a brilliant thing, mostly because it's so different to the other work that we do. Like we say, Alex is down there with the guys and girls in Milton Keynes, and I'm up here in a broom cupboard somewhere because I didn't pay my bills at Simply Race last time. So if any donations are greatly welcomed. But if you do want to get more information on Simply Race, head over to the website simplyrace.co.uk. It's not just championships. If you are interested in just turning up and having a little shot of their simulator software setups, it's all top of the range hardware and software that they have got there for you to use. In the whole grand scheme of things, it's cheaper than spending $1.5 to $2.5 buying your own kit. So pop down there, use their bar as well. Just getting that in there, fully licensed bar, and go and enjoy yourself for a little bit of an awesome day out. Not just that, but you can also head down there and just watch as well. Great place to go and have a pint and watch all of the action kicking off. But as we said, we're coming up to the top of the hour here then. 4 hours left to go. We're almost with 2 hours under our belts, and that gap predictably starting to go up then. Rocket Zancho Simsport up to 3.3 seconds behind the race leader then. That'll go up towards 4 seconds, and that puts them now second and third, with the sister car, the Zancho Rocket Simsport machine, in third position, with E-Team Brit in fourth position. And as Alex was mentioning, Hamish Eisner is due to be back behind, or getting behind the wheel of that car, having taken some familiarisation sessions earlier on during the day. So it'll be great to see her back behind the wheel of that number 15 E-Team Brit machine. Cam Sport in 5th position, Red Shell Racing in 6th, Ubarakuda in 7th, Cadan Casual Apex in 8th position, Need for Speed in 9th, and Precision Racing by Boa Sports in 10th position. Good afternoon to Dane Baird, who is giving us a big shout out on the YouTubes, and to Amelia Smith. Now, Amelia is, it's safe to say, a fairly hardcore fan of Team Fordzilla, and was suitably delighted when we saw the Fordzilla machine going round the outside to take the lead of the race. You just saw up on screen flashing confirmation, 4 hours left of the race to go. So again, we're about maybe 10 minutes away from our next bout of pit stops. That gap between Fordzilla and Rocket Zancho Simsport now up to 4.3 seconds. Incredible stuff. In fact, that's going up very quickly. I wonder if there was a little off-track excursion for that number 3 machine just now. And that gap weirdly, actually, I've just noticed this, the gap between second and third place, that's coming down quite quickly as well. So that gap now, what's that, 4.6 seconds between the two Rocket SimSport machines. So I'll be curious to see how that one goes. And Alex, just noticing that second and third place starting to squeeze up together here, do you think, given that there's championship implications in this and Rocket Zancho SimSport are ahead, surely you would think that Zancho Rocket SimSport are going to have to keep behind their sister car?
It depends, because obviously you have to look at the championship standings to have that question answered, because they're very close in terms of points. I mean, 2 points separate the two teams. So it's all dependent on how they're approaching the rest of the season, because your strategy is not going to just be based on 1 or 2 rounds. You're looking at the bigger picture. You're looking at the season finale, where a maximum score of 100 points is up for grabs. And who knows? Your guess is as good as mine, Mr. Christie. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, if there has been a team talk before between the two the drivers of the two cars, it's difficult to say. Really funny thing was, when I just came back, I was just clocked Jack Ashton talking with Callum Cripps, and Jack just said, "I did the first stint. I'll just let Charlie get on with it now." So Charlie's been behind the wheel of that sim rig for quite a significant amount of time, and obviously with the adrenaline flowing through the veins, if you've got a driver that's pushing the pace like he has, and he's just been in a 1 minute 50.6, 4 tenths quicker than the Rocket Zancho SimSport car in third place, and the gap now nearly 6 seconds. If your wheelman's doing good, like especially if it's from a hypothetical getaway robbery, you want Charlie Crossland as your driver right now.
I'm just thinking though, Alex, looking at the times, right? Team Fordzilla out in the lead, right? We know that, and we know that they were going to extend that gap. But the second place car, Rocket Zancho SimSport, they're now 6 seconds behind, but they're not. What I'm struggling to understand is that, you know, they're losing time, but Zancho Rocket SimSport, it seems like everybody else is kind of going along at a similar pace. It looks like their pace in the number 3 car in that second place is falling off a cliff. They're getting caught up by their teammates in third. I wonder if during the course of having to defend from Charlie Crossland, if they have absolutely burnt through their tyres. It seems very early to do so, but it also seems a little bit early if they're trying to try and double stint the tyres.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, yeah, if they've been defending like crazy, like they had done for what was it over the best part of 5 or 6 laps, yeah, the life of the tyres would have been exponentially decreased at a rapid rate of regeneration. I nearly said degenerate. You know, the tyres sort of really degrading to the point. I said a hybrid term there, regeneration. I didn't mean that. That's talking about brakes. I'm talking about tyres here. You know, when the tyres are degrading so point, and especially when the amount of lateral sidewall trauma that these tyres are going through, especially if you are leading and you've got a car right on your rear bumper or your rear diffuser, you're gonna have to push, and you've got no alternative. Because otherwise, if you let them get away with it a bit too easily, but then you've compromised your strategy. So it's a flip side, you know, it's both sides of the coin. Do you defend like crazy? Do you let them pass and have a bit more life in the tyres for the rest of that stint? I would not be at all surprised if what you're saying is absolutely spot on. I've just seen the times. Okay, 1.5 seconds was the delta on the last lap. 1 minute 50.3, Team Fordzilla. Rocket Zancho SimSport, 1 minute 51 points. And get ready for this. I know you're sitting down, David. 8.86. That is a second and a half. Nearly 1.6 seconds on that last lap alone. Gap now is up to 6.5 seconds.
Wow, that is thoroughly impressive stuff. And the thing is that it's a very deserved lead. And, you know, I weirdly had said about 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, don't be surprised now that Charlie Crossland has got the lead of this race to see that gap rocketing up to about 6 seconds. It's, you know, in a very short amount of time, and that's exactly what has happened here. Reminder flashing up on screen then, guys, if you want to get involved in the conversation, we are at Simply Race and use the hashtag SRES. Get involved in the conversation and we will give you a shout out where we possibly can. We're still watching the On JPEX Racing Machine, who, it's safe to say, has had their fair share of incidents this afternoon. Again, a very difficult car to drive, a very temperamental car to drive, and doing well, quite frankly, just to keep the thing on the straight and narrow just now. And I'm kind of distracted because I'm looking at the timing screens and I'm seeing that gap to second and third place now. Teammate cars now just 2 seconds. Not only is Fordzilla absolutely romping away with this one, but that number 3 car is losing time hand over fist, not only to the race leader here, Alex, but to the sister car in third place. And I don't think there's going to be a decision left for anyone to take, because I think pace-wise it's going to be shown all out on track.
Very much the case. I'm just going to quickly have a look at the comments, courtesy of our respective streams. Thank you very much to Amelia Smith. Good job, Team Fordzilla, with the big thumbs up emoji there. Sean O'Brien, Camsport and Cadan killing it. Keep it up. So Camsport currently in P5, Cadan Casual Apex in the number 10 car, rounding out the top 8. Top 7 cars still on the lead lap at the moment, David, with lap times running in the 1 minute 49s to the 1 minute 50s. Some of the teams that are new to, probably this car, like say Precision Racing themselves, and also Orange Apex, this is a very difficult car, as you said, to handle. And to give them credit where credit is due, they're still circulating. Okay, they're 2 and 3 laps off the leaders, but nevertheless, to be that far away after just over 2 hours of racing is no shrewd effort. And I know for a fact that the teams are putting every bit of effort, through memory, through brain, and also every muscle in the fibre of their being to keep the car on the circuit. And that's the biggest thing with these DPI cars, especially with this kind of circuit variation that we've got here at Road America.
It absolutely is. The other thing that I was away to speak about, Alex, is the fact that strategy we've already spoken about, but also the drivers themselves, the resilience that the drivers have to have. They're not at home, they're not at their usual setup, they're not in their usual rig, they're using a shared rig, they're using shared equipment, and it's a very, very different atmosphere. And I would say that there's actually a little bit more to it than that, because obviously, if you have a bit of a moment, right, then you've got to basically say oopsie over maybe say Discord or voice chat or something like that. Whereas I would imagine it's a little bit more awkward with your teammates right beside you, but on the other hand, it might actually be easier because they can instantly recognise you're feeling a little bit off and come over and give you a little bit of support and a little bit of encouragement and things like that. So it's a little bit unsure as we see Team Fordzilla into the pits already, about whether or not it's an advantage or whether or not it's just a little bit different, but very similar in terms of performance in person as opposed to online.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the drivers will have teammates over their shoulders, giving them little pep talks, giving them the motivation, just saying, look, you're braking a little bit late here, or you're getting a bit too early on the power here, or square it up a little bit more coming out of the corner. There are tips that you can give real time, and it's very, very different. It's better in person because they're there with you physically and mentally. They're in person. It's a completely different proposition, as you said, alluded to just then, about being on a Discord or TeamSpeak server at your sim rig, in your own bubble at home, where that is your world, that is your oyster, so to speak. But here it's great because you can see the camaraderie really being stepped up another level here at this event at Simply Race.
Oh, I've just noticed something. Right, okay, so first and third place into the pit lane then. Team Fordzilla do a 42-second stop. third place Zansho Rocket Simsport have done a 29.1 second stop. So provisionally, once we get this out, that means that Zansho Rocket Simsport are now going to take over the lead of this race. It was a 13-second quicker stop than the race leaders right now. So they've decided to roll the dice with the tyres and keep things going again. And just having a look here, also looking on that as well, he's using a completely different tyre here. So Alex, again, so many different rolls of the dice and strategy. How do you think this is going to pay off here?
Well, considering I just heard that Will Dendy has just double stinted a set of soft 8 compound tyres, that just goes to show that, Will Dendy, very handy behind the wheel of a sim rig, but also very handy in real life. And that real life experience can also count for something here as well. And when you think about it, Callum Cripps, also, you remember the 24 Hours of Silverstone C1 race. You were racing there. He was also racing there and absolutely shredding Nankang tyres round Silverstone like it was going out of fashion. But the real life experience can really be translated well into the R Factor 2 platform with the way that the cars are. You're going to get that force feedback. It's not going to be like the seat of your pants, like David Coulthard would always say when he was racing Formula 1 and DTM. But you still get that kind of vibe on how the car is reacting, and you'll try different things, especially through free practice. Qualifying is where you go all out, flat out, flat chat, go hard or go home, as Matthias Ekstrom always says. But when it comes to the race itself, you'll have done your homework in practice. You might have done a low fuel run with a softer compound of tyres. You might have done it with a harder set of tyres. There are so many different factors that you can learn so much from these cars and this circuit as it evolves over the course of the race distance. And when you think about it, the racetrack has evolved over the last, nearly 2.25 hours.
Yeah, certainly has. So we're seeing how that all pans out. Of course, the track evolution, Alex, as you rightly pointed out, is going to play a massive factor there. I did get pointed out that one of the teams is on hard tyres. I'm presuming that is going to be the number 2 Zansho Rocket Simsport. That would explain why they've double stinted those tyres, because obviously they can take it, but it means that they're going to be running at a restricted pace. This is genius. Because, Alex, if you think about it, what about if this Zansho Rocket Simsport's purpose is to frustrate and to absolutely put the anchors on Team Fordzilla right now? That would allow the sister car, the number 3 is around the outside. Charlie Crossland having absolutely none of it. Oh, that's exactly what this is. This is to try and frustrate Charlie Crossland and to try and make sure that Rocket Zansho Simsport is able to try and pull things out here. Well, this is a little bit of a turn up for the books. It looks like a little bit of team strategy being used here. I've got a feeling that Charlie Crossland is going to A, have absolutely none of it, and B, I think they're really not going to make this happen for too much longer here.
No, Jack Ashton now behind the wheel, so Charlie Crossland, after that monster stint, the quadruple stint I think he put behind the wheel, has now handed the reins back over to Jack Ashton. So Jack Ashton is the one that is battling away with the number 2 car. This is the battle for P5 on the road at the moment, and they're looking towards the next left-hander, towards round the outside. Oh, trying to turn in, and the Zansho Rocket Simsport car was there. They're going to go under the bridge, going into the left-hander here at turn 8. We're riding on board with Team Fordzilla, piloted by Jack Ashton, through into the next right-hander. Now, this is where it gets interesting, folks, because just seeing from this viewpoint, seeing it from the rear wing of the number 2 car, launching it up the inside of the curves was Jack Ashton. He's trying everything. He's trying to go around the outside as he got the move done. That's the biggest thing here, because I'm just waiting to see. He's kept it round the outside, bumping over the curbs, and Jack Ashton has got through. That was textbook right there. He just kept it committed, foot to the floor, turned it in, kept it planted, and there you go.
I'm sorry, what? Did that actually just happen? Did he just take him around the outside of the carousel? Incredible stuff there. So that means that that is going to push further back then Sancho Rocket Simsport. They try to hold on there as we go to a replay then. This is coming out of turn 7 as they go through into turn 8, then round the carousel, round the outside. The presence of mind and quality of driving from Jack Ashton to think, yep, sorry mate, that's mine, I'm going to take that, see you later, bye bye. The question is now, though, as the leader, you're leading Rocket Sancho Simsport machine into the pits, and are they going to come out in front? No, they are not. So Rocket Sancho Simsport not only lose out in the pits, but they end up going down into 3rd position overall. So, Alex, that is a bombshell of a strategy there from Team Fordzilla, and that has backfired massively for the number 3.
Well, did you notice that when Jack Ashton had the presence of mind to put it round the outside of that car going through the carousel, the car inside actually bumped over the curb, so it unsettled the balance, and that was why Jack Ashton had to thread the eye of the needle round the outside of there. He felt in his mind, this is the opportunity that I've got to take it, and he was fully committed. He was more than 100% committed. I think probably 115% committed, because he knew he could pull that move off. And when you put that amount of pressure on a car on your inside going through such a sweeping right-hander, you've got to have big cojones to do it, and Jack Ashton has got them in spades.
He certainly does, doesn't he? Goodness me. So that now means that, well, provisionally we've got Barracuda in the lead of this race by 16 seconds. They still have to pit very, very shortly. That now means that Fordzilla are out in the lead by about 1.8 seconds over Sancho Rocket Simsport. In fact, 1.8 is about the gap between the two of them. I've got a feeling they are just going to streak off into the sunset here, because there is nothing that Rocket Sancho Simsport can do about that one. Despite the undercuts, despite the strategy calls, this has been done on pure pace alone, and Fordzilla will cross the line as Barracuda into the pit lane then, and Team Fordzilla regain the lead of this race. And for me, right now, this puts everything on Fordzilla for an amazing position. Coming out to the halfway point of this race, Alex, with 3 hours of 42 minutes left to go, 40 minutes away from the halfway point in the season. I honestly, I cannot overstate how much of a performance this is from Team Fordzilla, and I don't think it looks like, anyway, at the moment, that anybody, any other team, any other driver has an answer for them right now.
That's the $64,000 question answered right there and there, David, if I'm completely honest with you. But yeah, we're 41 minutes and 45 seconds from the actual halfway point of Season 4 of the Simply Race Endurance Series. And it is about, minding your P's and Q's, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, making sure that you're not taking any undue risk. Now, I did say that there would be calculated risks taken, and both Jack Ashton and Charlie Crossland at Team Fordzilla have proved that significantly. There was a warning shot fired across the bow after the mistake, after the first pit stop, but they clawed it back. They were on a mission. Charlie Crossland was on an absolute biblical-style tear, and, we've seen moves around the outside, but of all the circuits where you see two DPIs going side by side into turn 1 here at Road America, never would I have thought that would have happened, but now we realise just how much calibre there is in this pairing. And, they're going to go in to the 12 hours of Portimao in the first weekend of April with a bag full of confidence, because let's not forget, they've got a maximum points haul. If the way things carry on as they are right now, they're going to be 3 for 3, and everyone who wants to catch them up and pass them, they've got to bring their real A game in the next 2 rounds.
I can't agree with you more on that one. The problem that brings up for the rest of the season is absolutely profound. Yes, there is still a boatload of points on offer for the remainder of the season, Alex. But, what a strong position. I mean, can you imagine, right, if Fordzilla do go in with 100 points and the lead that gives them over everywhere else, given next team up is Barracuda, who aren't having the best day out today. They are down in 7th position. They'll get some points for that. But again, that will mean that is, I would imagine, probably about a 40-point gap that they're going to have over the next team that are anywhere near them. I mean, Camsport are in 3rd place in Championship. They're down in 5th position. So it just leaves such an amazing end to the Championship. And quite honestly, given the late resurgence of the likes of Zansho Rocket Simsport and Rocket Zansho Simsport, I would be very, very hesitant to look anywhere else for the Championship other than Team Fordzilla. And again, given the tumultuous nature of whatever is going on behind the scenes over there, the fact that they can still rock up, Alex, and still put in these incredible performances is just absolutely astonishing.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that with the way things are at the moment, I'm just looking at the points they get for this round. Okay, let's have a look at those behind Team Fordzilla at the moment. Okay, firstly, Barracuda, currently on 57 points. The way they are at the moment, currently in P7, that gives them 16 points, putting them on 73. Camsport, currently in 5th place. That will give them 18 points, and that will put them on 74. You've then got E-Team Brit running a very, very strong 4th right now, and the way things stand, they are currently sitting on 47 points, level with Kadan Casual Apex, who are rounding out the top 8. If E-Team Brit finish 4th, it's going to give them 19 points, so that's going to put them onto 66 points. That's going to really bring this battle for effectively what we could call at this point in the season, David, the de facto runner-up spot. This is going to put several teams within less than 10 points of each other going into the penultimate round of the season, where you're going to have double points on offer.
Absolutely the case, Alex. And again, it's times like this where we get a little bit of a lull in the action, especially compared to what we saw up in the front of the field, where we get to sit down and we get to bring out the slide rule and the calculator and the spreadsheet and try and work out what if this, what if that, and some fascinating possibilities towards the tail end of the season. Remember, after this race today, we only have 2 rounds left in the Championship. That's right. We head over to our penultimate round, which is, of course, round 4, where we will head over and do our 4th round of the season. But when we do that, doing the 12 hours of Portimao in the GTEs, all the attention is going to be on that final round, isn't it, Alex, on the 24 hours of Spa? Because in June, when we head over to there, it's going to be in the DPIs and the GTEs, and it's only going to be a set number of drivers and teams that are going to be in those DPI cars.
Yeah, and also when you look at, that's going to be the top 7 come the rankings at the end of the 12 hours of Portimao. One of the biggest things also is the fact that teams can't change their car in terms of the GTE class. So whatever they ran with at round 2 at Imola, they'll be running with at round 4 at Portimao. So you're going to see probably the best part of half the field as Corvettes. You're going to see probably, we had 4 Aston Martins. We had a few other cars as well, a Porsche, a couple of Ferraris as well to boot. So one of the other things about the Championship is that if you change cars at any point during the season in terms of the GTE, I think you lose all your points up. I think if you change cars, you lose points. So the teams will have to remain in those GTE cars if they don't make it into the top 7 for the final race of the 24 hours of Spa-Francorchamps. But it's going to be crucial how they perform and how they actually ready up to the task, because there's a bit of a lengthy break. We're going to have the best part of, 2.5 months up until the next round in early April. And then it's nearly 3 months before the final round at Spa. But you can be guaranteed that the teams and drivers will be putting in their due diligence and making sure that we will still manage to have some great racing all the way through the rest of the season.
And just on that note as well, the other thing to bring up is we see a penalty for Need for Speed. I'm going to presume that is for track limits. It's been assigned automatically to the team there. We see the teams that are out there today, and while some of them might just be, teams that are out for a bit of a giggle and taking part in the championship and stuff like that, the majority of the teams here, Alex, are ones that we are able to give you some background on, because we see them in other championships. We see them on other platforms quite regularly involving the same drivers, and it's a very, very busy schedule that these drivers have. One day they'll be racing in R Factor 2, the next they're in Assetto Corsa Competizione, the next they're taking part in a team race in iRacing, and it goes on and it goes on. And we've spoken to many top flights, professional, semi-professional sim racers, and the one thing that's consistent from them is that they get very little time to practice. They get very, very little time. They'll get maybe an hour to an hour and a half tops to practice on a given track or a given car or whatever. And I wonder how much of that is from muscle memory, from their experience using the different sims. But then you think of how often the sims change, how often big updates come out, how often the meta is rebalanced in terms of car performance, in terms of tyre models, all that sort of stuff. And yet these guys and girls have to reflect to it so quickly, and they have to do it almost on the fly. It's an impressive state of affairs where their calendars are almost getting full up. And they have to pick and choose what races they actually want to or are able to take part in.
A lot of these sim racing drivers, they'll spend like 5-6 hours behind the wheel of their sims at their homes, but then they'll also be taking, like traditional motorsport real life calendars. You might have a couple of weeks between the race. You might even have 2 to 3 months between the race. Whereas with the beauty of sim racing is you can be in a race every single day of the week if you so want to. So the drivers are putting in the wheel time. They're putting in the hours, as we have a brief see of Red Shell Racing going very, very wide coming out of the exit of turn number 1. But yeah, it just goes to show that the adaptability of a lot of drivers nowadays, they are not sticking, some of them, and that's what the beauty is of, like, obviously with the BCO ERWC this weekend. It just showcases how adaptable people can become. And when, as you said, it's a bit like riding a bike. Once you ride it, you never forget. And it's the same with sim racing. If you are aware of the relevant updates, the consistent updates, the changes you're having to make, then that's why we're seeing so many adaptable sim races these days. It's a bit like when, like say Sterling Moss, when he was racing back in the 50s and 60s. They were doing Formula 1. Sterling Moss raced the Mille Miglia, winning in 1955, for instance. Back then there were a lot of drivers going not just into single seaters, but also sports cars as well. So the adaptability, you can see it. You don't see it these days in a lot of mainstay in real life motorsport, but in sim racing, you've got this smorgasbord, is the term I like sort of the term to use here, where they can really. Some of them will be. One of them will go, yeah, I'm going to stick to ACC and iRacing. One will go, well, I'd rather prefer to be on R Factor 2 as my devout platform. But yeah, some drivers will maybe pick or choose 1 or 2 sims that speak volumes to their skill set.
And just on that as well, obviously one of the things that I mentioned on is that it's a big weekend for both real life racing and for sim racing as well. One of the things that I've got my eye on in the background as well is the Daytona 24. And when you're mentioning that about the real life drivers that are talented in multiple different classes, that brings it up perfectly. I think back in the day of Scotland's very own, Jim Clark, who could almost win anything that he turned his hand to. I'll look at the likes of the Daytona 24 and I'll look at a lot of the names in the top 5 at each class, the likes of Rinus VeeKay, who you'd watch on IndyCar, taken to LMP2, Nicky Katzberg. in the Nürburgring 24 as well. A lot of these drivers will do very, very different classes of racing and then move on to different things. And again, just on that note you were saying about drivers sticking to their own platform, you do see that, but not as much as you would think here on sim racing, especially with the team obligations that they've got. I think to people that I know because they're very good at certain sims. So I think of like Jack Keithley, who is amazing at the likes of race room racing experience, and who is starting to come into his own on the likes of iRacing, but I haven't really seen him too much on a Assetto Corsa Competizione. And those are professional sim racing drivers. They've got a proper full-time contract with big name esports companies and brands and franchises, and that's exactly it. And the thing is that they have to keep that as you mentioned, that smorgasbord very large, because that also means that they've got a lot of opportunity to take on new adventures and new abilities here. Just having a look at the race then, as we've got 3.5 hours left to go then. We are rapidly coming up to the halfway point in this race, just 28 minutes left to go, and we're about 10 minutes away from our next, 15 minutes away actually, from our next round of pit stops. And interestingly, I've just noticed, as we see here, E-Team Brit now coming under increasing pressure, not only from Campsport, but 3 seconds behind them is Red Shell Racing. So that is an interesting little development that's happening here. And do we know, is it Hamish Eisner we've got behind the wheel of E-Team Brit just now, Alex? Alex is obviously a way to find that one out, but I think that's who I'm thinking maybe behind the wheel of the E-Team Brit machine just now, but under real pressure here from Campsport Racing, Red Shell Racing as well, trying to get themselves into the mix here with Fordzilla, 9.7 seconds. So that gap, while it did increase, it's not increasing all that much as Zanshu Rocket Simsport pulled the trigger then, as we thought, into pit lane with that number 2 machine, and it's car numbers 1, 2, 3 in positions 1, 2 and 3. And here we go then, pit stop done and dusted, or away to be done and dusted for Sancho Rocket Simsport here. And Alex, again, strategy has made a huge play in terms of how things have developed. But again, I have no idea how this is going to pan out. I think Fordzilla are in a very strong position, but you get the feeling that a mistake or a hiccup anywhere could be absolutely costly for these teams.
Yeah, and Campsport in the meantime just gone up the inside of E-Team Brit. It is Hamish Eisner behind the wheel of the car, so he's just had, basically Campsport just sent him, I think, the same postcode as Danny Britt's current resident at the moment. But yeah, as you alluded to there, a mistake can be costly. And at this stage of the race, this is where the mistakes are now going to start to count against the teams. If they put a foot wrong, if something goes awry, the car ends up in the barriers for whatever reason, damage is on these vehicles, ladies and gentlemen. We have seen it before in other sim racing competitions where wheels have come off vehicles when they've absolutely hit the barriers hard. If anyone might remember, unfortunately, Max Verstappen's incident in the Le Mans 24-hour virtual, he was leading, and one mistake, and the car had both wheels ripped off one side of the car, and that car ended up going return to garage.
You see, you mentioned that, Alex. I've only just gotten over the constant spam of chat of where is Max. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, tell me about it. It's like, and then everyone's going, where's is Jimmy racing? Jimmy Broadbent.
Yeah. Which one's Jimmy?
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta love it. But on that note, that brings up a brilliant point, because I think that's done another wonderful boost to the profile of sim racing. Just very quickly on that, I mean, obviously we get to talk about it a little bit because it's shared platform. R Factor 2 is what we're using here to race, and it had a very difficult opening year, the Le Mans Virtual, and there was many people questioning whether or not it was a viable thing because of all the technical difficulties that they had in that opening stint. And it didn't happen this time. They had a flawless performance, and arguably one of the pinnacle, one of the greatest events that we've had in sim racing so far. Anyway, enough of that, because here comes E-Team Brett under big pressure. That's going to be Red Shell Racing trying to fire it up the inside at corner number 5. Red Shell Racing keep that position going strong, and they've taken 4th place like candy from a baby from E-Team Brit just now, and that is a job done there as the number 6 machine makes it up into 4th position. And well, that was made to look very easy there, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes with this stage, we're getting into that golden hour in the middle of the race. When you get to sort of half an hour before the halfway point and then half hour after is when it's sort of like, say, when you're going twice, you have to survive the night to get to the finish. The same can be true on the halfway points of even something like a 6-hour endurance race, David. And from that is, everyone's got to have their A game on point, but then you also, we keep on mentioning mistakes can happen. You get a track cut, if the automated stewards on the R Factor 2 server that we've got running here ping you for track cuts and it's excessive and you get pinged with enough of them, that car is going through the pit lane, guaranteed. And, it's just really a case of making sure that the team is constantly communicating between one another, making sure it's like, are you okay? Do you feel you've got enough for another stint? Do you want to stay in for another half hour? Do we get you out after this stint? You tell us what you need. So the constant communication chatter between the drivers and the teams is paramount right about now.
That's an excellent point, actually. Team communication and clear lines of guidance between everyone, between the drivers, and making sure that the physical and mental toll of the races today is kept to an absolute minimum, and their drivers are kept fresh. And as you said, not only the drivers there that you can see in the background there at Milton Keynes, but you can also see some of the support staff there as well on their laptops, possibly working stint times out, possibly working on their social media presence, which is another aspect of modern sim racing as well. Is you've not only got to drive fast, you've not only got to be a demon behind the wheel, but you've also got to be pretty much a full rounds social media marketing guru all at the same time, and watch what you're saying, especially if you've got a large following or a bit of a corporate presence, shall we say, or a corporate link. I mean, we're never a stranger to drama in the sim racing circles. We saw some kicking off last weekend. I'm sure it won't be the last time that we hear more drama going on in the circles, and it just comes down to that that competitiveness, doesn't it, Alex? And the fact that, quite simply, the way that the world works and the way that society works is that not everybody gets on with everybody, and it's just a case of trying to keep yourself to yourself. And Fordzilla, wow, that is on the ragged edge of performance there. Alex, Fordzilla really still pushing that car, and some would say maybe they don't have to right now, but again, it feels like they're absolutely proving a point right now.
Yeah, considering the last lap, Dave, it was a 1 minute 49.938, just under 0.3 off of their best lap of the race so far, which just so happens to be the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 49.680. Yeah, I mean, when you think about the way that sim racing has evolved in the last 22 months since the pandemic came in, you've got a lot of big players. You've got works teams, you've got manufacturer-supported teams coming on board. And there are some big independent teams still pushing, like Redline, for instance, still an independent team, and then you have other teams that are really coming to the fore, like RHG, for instance.
And just on that note as well, it's a fascinating topic actually. The conversation of independent teams and like back teams as well. You mentioned RHG Esports, the Roman Grosjean esports team. Many of the other teams as well, like the Ferrari Drivers Academy. There was the Jean Lacy esports team as well, and many big name drivers and brands actually getting involved with esports. And it's a strange one to actually read about and to understand, because on paper it sounds like, oh well, it's just their name, and it's just to to help promote the the brand to their audience. But actually it's not the case at all. So again, from listening to all the work at E-Team Brit and from Ferrari Drivers Academy and all that sort of stuff as well, there's a lot of genuine bona fide driver training, even if that's in the sim racing world, bona fide driver training that goes on across the board, not just in the independent teams, but at a proper backed level as well. This is, as we've said before, almost a full-time job for some of these drivers, or at the very most it's a full-time job that they're trying to squeeze in around about whatever their actual career is anyway. And it's a very unusual position and an unusual period that sim racing is in now, that you've got these drivers that take it so seriously, and quite honestly, in both the sponsorship, partnership money and the prize money, there's a lot in it for them right now. Yeah,
I mean, business is booming in not just sim racing, but esports in general. There's a lot of product placement. There's a lot of corporate marketing that goes on. The amount of organisations that have really, in the last 2 years, have just been absolutely been great for what we've been seeing over those last 22 months. And this is where people now recognise that it is no joke in the sim racing world. There are teams, there are drivers, there are organisations that are willing to put on one hell of a show for the fans. And to be honest with you, with the way that I wasn't a shrewd person when it came to sim racing. I was a bit naive, a bit wet behind the ears. But then when my mind was truly opened in May of 2020, completely, like now here in, February 2022, as Barracuda have just gone up the inside through turn 1 on E-Team Brit for 5th place. So that positional change has just happened. Yeah, but like I say, the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes, there's so much that goes on, that now there are entities, there's corporate entities out there that want to get involved. That's why you're seeing a lot of this NFT business as well going on with a lot of organisations and a lot of competitions that are happening at the moment. So things are changing in the motorsport fabric, and you know what? To be honest with you, I'm kind of glad that I'm part and parcel of it these days.
It's an amazing world to be part of here, as we see. This is, as you mentioned there, that was E-Team Brit and Barracuda, and Barracuda making it look very, very easy up the inside of the E-Team Brit machine. Although, again, different pit stop strategies there, and E-Team Brit falling further down the order there. Been asked how Will Dendy is getting on by himself. The answer is very blooming well, surprisingly well, for a proper 6-hour stint all by themselves. Team Fordzilla into the pits, and again, Alex, the Will Dendy doing a solo stint for all of the 6 hours. I mean, that is a huge physical and mental toll, isn't it?
Oh, I've just seen Cadan Casual Apex off the circuit. That was why there was a brief yellow out. The car running in 8th position at the moment. Yeah, Will Dendy, machine. Great guy. But we're just going to go to the replay now, and this is we're going to go to replay shortly of what happened with Cadan Casual Apex going exiting stage left onto the grass. But yeah, I mean, for someone like Will. Very credible individual, great guy to get on with as well. For him to do it all or toute seule, as the French would say. We're going to go to the replay now. Now, this is coming down the dip into the... you're just going to see right now what happens. Back end steps out. Oh, mowing some grass, are we, I think? Yep, and it's a full 360, but they managed to get the car stopped and then bring it back out onto circuit. So a nice save there. So at least no code brown there, no travelling into the wall at high velocity, because that could have been a significant amount of damage for the number 10 car. But yeah, it just goes to show mistakes are starting to creep in now, David, and it's not getting any easier for the teams.
You're absolutely spot on, and I'm just looking at the timing screens because obviously we've got cars in between different pit stops here. Looks like the number 2 Zancho Rocket Sim Sport machine now is just, what's that, about half a second behind Team Fordzilla. Now this is a turn up for the books here because this is the car that was in second place, so this is the 2 cars that were battling, and again a huge chunk of time being taken out, possibly under fueling, possibly double stinting tyres here, Alex, and again it's game on with these 2 cars out on track there. And if it is a case of Zancho are double stinting those tyres there, they're going to be raging that wasn't enough to still keep on to the lead here.
Yeah, they could kick themselves a little bit downstairs for that one, but you always have to sort of, take a lick and keep on ticking. You just got to keep on going. You can't do, if a mistake happens or a strategy call is inefficient, you then have to look at it, analyse it, go, right, how can we counteract that? How can we respond accordingly? And for me, it's about how they pick themselves up, dust themselves on, and just get on with business. That's how competitive sim racing drivers are.
Really, really is. So, 3 hours and 13 minutes left to go in the race then. This is so very nearly halfway in the championship. We are, in fact, actually, we will be halfway in the championship as we go back to another replay here. This is the number 5 machine, and I think it just looks like, in fact, is this just one of those sexy, glamorous shots? It is from our... man on a mission behind the production scenes is Mike Yao. I'm not going to lie, that was kind of awesome. That's like, when they do it in the real life bits where it sort of cuts away and you get those dramatic shots of the cars sweeping through the corners. I've got no doubt that's exactly what that was. Talking about dramatic, this is dramatic here because Camsport right now are under all sorts of pressure. Red Shell Racing, who, Alex, quite honestly, we haven't even spoken about them today. They are absolutely giving it what we would call up here, giving it loudly. They are so close to the tail end of Camsport here, but also Zancho are starting to drop away a little bit from Team Fordzilla.
Well, as you were saying your Scottish terminology there, Red Shell Racing peeled off to the right-hand side and now have decided to pit. So quickly as you clapped eyes on that, it was a case of Red Shell Racing decided to deny us by going into a normal scheduled pit stop thereof. So yeah, and coming back to the wonderful slow-mo we just saw just then going through turn 8, courtesy of our awesome broadcast director, Mr. Mike. Yeah, the grin on his face spoke volumes. I saw him queuing that up, and it was an absolute masterclass as always.
Certainly was. So let's have a look then. Pit stops are trickling through. We're still halfway through our pit stop stint just now. Going deep into this pit stop, I've got to say, is the number 3 Rocket Zancho Sim Sport machine. I would imagine they'll be into pits very, very shortly. 33 seconds ahead of Camsport and Barracuda. The gap between Fordzilla, though, and the number 2 Rocket Zancho Rocket Sim Sport machine, though, is about 1.8 seconds. And again, Fordzilla doing exactly everything they need to do at this current stage in time, with just about 3 hours left to go in the race. This is going to be a fascinating affair. Caran Casual Apex on the way into pit lane just now. Rocket Sancho Simsport into the pits as well just now. I wonder if they will be double stinting those tyres to try and bring them back into contention, but I think they might be a little bit too far back. Here come Camsport into the pit lane as well. So surely are going to be Barracuda. No, Barracuda again decide to stay for another lap out this time. But yeah, fascinating stuff here as Rocket Sancho Simsport. How long are they going to be into the pits for? 25 to 27 seconds if they're double stinting the tyres, and it looks like they might be wanting to get a full stop done. And they've certainly gone. In fact, no, there they go, 31.9. So they're going to come out of pit lane and they're already going to drop back into third position. So despite them trying to undercut in terms of pit strategy, that's still not going to be enough. Rocket Sancho Simsport are going to be into third position here. Well, here we go. This is the tail end, the business half of the race here, Alex. And yeah, a lot unfolding in front of our eyes.
And this is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg, Mr. Christie. I mean, you know, we're getting to that point where the real strategy calls will be played deep into the bottom of the ninth. And when we get to the last hour, I think, is probably when you're going to really see which teams have got their strategy calls on cue. And that's what they need to do here as Avanti Racing go sweeping around the outside of Camsport, who've just exited pit lane. But yeah, Barracuda taking a, I wouldn't say a traditional strategy call. They're going a little bit longer, so sometimes some teams might decide to fuel the car right to the top of the tank. And effectively the lap times drop, as we all know, in any form of motorsport, be it sim racing or in real life. The minute the fuel starts to drop, litre by litre, gallon by gallon, as now Barracuda end up into the pits from the lead of the race, which means that Team Fordzilla, who will very shortly be coming through the 13th and 14th corners here at this fantastic circuit at Elkhart Lake in Wisconsin, you know, they're now going to take the lead. The Barracuda are just making their way to their pit box, and yeah, on cue. Team Fordzilla are now Sancho, Rocket, Simsport. That's the top two. But interestingly enough here, David, look at the gap between the top two as well. 2.58 seconds as things stand. And then it's the number 3 car. And look at that. Look at the numbers of the pods and look at the respective numbers of the cars. Because for those wondering, the number on the right-hand column of the timing is actually the pod that the teams are racing in. Look at that. 1, 2, 3. 3 little piggies. All nicely in dual file formation there, mate.
Well, they don't have to go far to throw rubbish or abuse to their compadre out on track. So again, very, very close to the action, and they're close to each other in real life as well down there at Milton Keynes. So fascinating to see how this is all going to unfold. But 3 hours 7 minutes left to go in the race, and just watching then to give you a full update. Then it's Team Fordzilla in the lead from Sancho Rocket Simsport in second place. Rocket Sancho Simsport in third, with Camsport in fourth position. Red Shell Racing in fifth. Barracuda in sixth position. Seventh place for E-Team Brit right now. Caran Casual Apex in eighth position. Avanti Racing in ninth. And it's Need for Speed Racing in 10th position, as you're watching live coverage of the Simply Race Endurance Series Season 4 Round 3. This is 6 hours of Road America. The DPI cars doing very well. Alex, I mean, obviously we're in the DPIs, we were in the GTEs last time. We're going to go back to the GTEs. Do you think for the next time out that we're going to see a different story, or do you think that Fordzilla, I mean, surely potentially they might be able to, or am I just talking nonsense here? They might be able to secure the championship if they take another full points into the final round.
Oh, well, we're going to hopefully get a replay very shortly. The number 3 going sideways in a minute, going into turn number 8. But yeah, it's as I said earlier, going as we've had a yellow out in sector 1 as well, as things stand. So mistakes starting to creep in a little bit more now as we're just under 6 minutes away from the halfway mark. The 12-hour race is going to be a bit like the strategy that we saw at the 12 Hours of Bud International Circuit at, the first round of the championship. So, again, the strategy is going to be slightly elongated in comparison to what we have. We'll have a different fuel consumption ratio to contend with because you're going to have multiple different manufacturers. The Corvette, the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. Now, here is the sideways moment, I think, just coming through into shot in just a second. There you go, the number 3. Completely sideways going through into turn 7, manages to catch it, runs a little bit wide coming out of the exit of the corner and manages to gather it back up the hill towards turn 8. So yeah, it's tough to call because I don't think we're going to get a real indication of whether that is going to be the case come the end of the first quarter, the first half, the first 9 hours. But then in the final 3 hours, we saw that for those that did join us for the first round of the championship, the 12 Hours of Bud International, where we had a battle that could have been completely different had Radicals Online not had issues. And without issues, well, if you want championships, you want to have drama in there as well. So at the moment, with 3 hours, 4 minutes and 20 seconds still to go on the clock, Team Fordzilla lead by just over 2.6 seconds from Zancho Rocket Simsport. Rocket Zancho Simsport rounding out the top 3. Top 3 covered by about 16.5 seconds right now as we're keeping an eye on Red Shell Racing. We are ahead of Barracuda, and between the pair, it's about one. It's a little bit. We're going to go to another replay here. Another one of these wonderful slow-mos. The number 1 Team Fordzilla car, nice and tidy on the apex, rotating the car through before putting down the accelerator. And then also the number 2 Zancho Rocket Simsport car. So the gap between these two cars, as things stand now, extends to about 3.5 seconds. Team Fordzilla looking to be round about close to a tenth ahead of, in terms of pure lap pace, of the number 2 car. But Red Shell Racing coming under a little bit of salvo fire, courtesy of no, that's actually Avanti Racing just behind, who are a couple of laps down on them. So the top 7 at the moment, which is Fordzilla, Zancho Rocket Simsport, Rocket Zancho Simsport, Cam Sport, Red Shell Racing, Barracuda and E-Team Brit, still all on the lead lap after nearly 3 hours of racing. And we're 180 seconds from the halfway point of the championship season. Head to simplyrace.co.uk/SRES to get involved. If you do, there will be pods available. I can guarantee you that much. We've got 12 occupied here, so who knows? If you want to have an opportunity of doing the 24 Hours of Spa-Francorchamps on the 25th and 26th of June this year, get yourself signed up. So, and a little bit further down, Avanti Racing, closing in on Cadan Casual Apex for 8th position. And that is actually a battle out on track. They're going through the twisty stuff towards the far part of the circuit itself. Now are a couple of laps down on Red Shell Racing, who are just up ahead. So it's looking pretty close between cars 10 and 11 for what is 8th position on the road right now. And Red Shell Racing about 1.7 seconds behind, as the move has happened, because it looked like there was a little bit of a mistake possibly from Cadan Casual Apex coming out of turn 14, dropping a wheel onto the dirt. But now they're trying to close up on Avanti Racing, going down in towards turn 1. Orange Apex Racing still sitting in 11th position, a couple of laps down off of the leaders as they are making their way down the start-finish straight. And another comment from Heike van der Veen. Big thank you to Heike for saying, come on Cadan and Cam Sport, you've got this. Well, Cam Sport running P4 at the moment. But as things stand, as Barracuda trying to make its way through some back market traffic, which is the two teams battling over 8th and 9th at the moment. So still have plenty of this race to go. just over 3 hours of this third round, the halfway point of the championship. As it's getting a bit close and heated and hot under the collar for the drivers in the 8th and 9th positioned cars. Avanti Racing in 9th, Cadan Casual Apex running at the top 8, and Mr. Christie. In 24 seconds, we are officially halfway through the championship.
I'm absolutely loving that fact. I was a way to burst into song about it. We're halfway there, living on a prayer, but I'm not. I'm going to save you all, ladies and gentlemen, from that, because that would quite honestly be absolutely horrific. But you're absolutely spot on. 3 hours ticks over here at the virtual recreation of Roads America. We are halfway through the race. The 50% mark has been reached here on the Simply Race Endurance Series Season 4, Round 3. It's David Christie and Alex Goldschmiidt bringing you all of the action. Alex, the lucky son of a gun, is down there at Milton Keynes at Simply Race, the UK's premier sim racing venue, and you could be down there too for round 5. All you have to do is head over to simplyrace.co.uk, get yourself signed up and head yourself down there. Get your friends down and get on the grid. Get yourselves beating some of these teams and show us what you are made of. It's still Team Fordzilla who are back out in front ahead of Zancho Rocket Sim Sport. Now, that was the way things have been since the early stage of the race. However, it was about half an hour in when Rocket Zancho Sim Sport, the number 3 machine, decided that they were going to try and throw a spanner in the works by mixing up the strategy a little bit. They decided to double stint their hard tyres that they were on, and that was like a red rag to a bull. Team Fordzilla's Charlie Crossland took that as a personal challenge and ended up absolutely hammering the times down. As we've got a car off in the background, I would quite like to figure out who that is. And there you go, that is a penalty for the number 3 team of Rocket Zancho Sim Sport. And I tell you what, Alex, that is the last thing that they wanted halfway into this race here.
Back from that, David. You know, all's fair in love and sim racing. So whether the number 3 can get back out on, get back out on the track, serve that penalty, get it done out the way quickly, because what you want is that to be hanging over you like a storm cloud waiting to erupt over the top of your head with thunder, lightning, and a rainstorm. We lasted for this race, David. So the main thing is that. I said this earlier, it's about how you come back from an incident like that, a penalty. And the first thing that they're going to say is, we didn't really need that. Then they can go, well, hang on a second, let's see if we can push a little bit.
That's a very good point, actually, Alex. And we need to do 2 things. One is we need to refresh the time and tower so we get the updated times. And 2, we need to have a look and see if Max Spooner is placing crisp packets over your mic receiver, Alex, because your microphone, unfortunately, breaking up a little bit there, so we'll get you a little bit closer. It's like a virtual leash, basically. It's making sure that you can't actually get away too far from the venue. Martin Buchan has actually just replied on YouTube saying that this is the heady lifestyle, right? So picture the scene. You've seen the Netflix documentary Drive to Survive, all about the glitz, glamour and drama of Formula 1. This is the glitz, glamour and drama of the Simply Race Endurance Series. Martin Buchan is waiting in the halls for his Wagamama. For his lunch while he has a period out of the car. Alex, that is A, rude of him not to ask if you wanted anything, and B, that is the glamorous lifestyle.
that could be the case that I might have to send you a direct message of what I would actually tell you, but I'm not going to broadcast that on air.
I'm not even going to ask that. But
yeah, I know.
Is you should see if Martin fancies come and having a word with you.
Yeah, I might even collar Max Spooner as well when I get the opportunity. So yeah, it's just one of those things where you just have to, it just goes to show that, well, when you're in Milton Keynes Central, if you have never been to Simply Race, get your backsides down here. Because they, as David alluded to earlier, we had a lot of, we've got some great offers here at Simply Race for people to have an opportunity. They cater for corporate gigs as well, so the more the merrier, as they say.
Oh, result! Martin's saying that you can have one of his gyozas if you're nice. So there you go, you're scored.
Don't start throwing me under the bus. Oh, right, okay, yeah. I've just seen that. Thanks for giving me the heads up on that track limit allocation exceeded for number 3. Yeah, we were a bit close to the wire on that, weren't we? Round 1, if memory serves me correctly.
I think he only had like 1 or 2 points left. But yeah. Well, that's just one of those things, isn't it? So, Martin Buchan is waiting to tuck into his lunch here. We're enjoying tucking in to a fantastic afternoon of racing. And what is going on with Team Fordzilla? Just when we think we've got everything all figured out, that gap that was 2.8 seconds is coming down. It's now under 2 seconds. It's now coming under 1.7 seconds. This is starting to get a little bit curious. Are Fordzilla just managing the gap, at which point I think it's a little bit too close for comfort? Or is Zancho Rocket Sim Sports starting to get a second life? This is a very, very curious question. And Alex, I'm wondering, obviously the whole thing that we've been going on about is the fact that this is in person. Everyone's down there in Milton Keynes. And is there a difference to how the atmosphere is with 3 hours left to go than to when the race actually started?
I think the tension's going to rise even more when we get to the last, half hour. Because then, you could see teams that have probably used their strategy cards wisely have managed to get themselves into the right position at the right time. And obviously, they're not just calculating what's going on in this race. They've got to look ahead, as I said earlier, about the bigger picture. Because this is over a period of 6 or so months that this championship is running over. They have minimal practice. They have a 1 hour session in the morning, 40 minutes before qualifying, and then a 30-minute qualifying session. So you can't... Sometimes you can't, I'm going to use a term, you can't always put all your eggs in one basket for one particular round. You've got to spread them across the whole season. And from that perspective, if you're a team like Team Fordzilla and you're pushing as now Zancho Rocket Sim Sport in the number 2 car, have just come into the pits. Rocket Zancho Sim Sport have just spent 32 seconds in, I think, they're just making their way out of pit lane at the moment. So, yeah, it's... You don't want to do everything all in one round, because then basically you're going to exhaust every opportunity for any future rounds. So, and we've still got 2 to go, and the winner in each round, they'll get 50 points for the 12 hours of Portimao, and they'll then get 100 points for the 24 hours of Spa-Francorchamps. So, yeah, Team Fordzilla might leave this round with 100 points in the bag, but think of it this way, David. Still 150 points up for grabs the 2 final races of the season.
Absolutely is. And I'm just trying to figure out what's happened with the number 3 Rocket Zancho Sim Sport machine, because they're now falling further and further and further back, losing a hand over fist in terms of pace from Team Fordzilla. That's a very unusual case. If that, maybe the timing tower is just having a little bit of a moment there, but we'll keep our eye on that. Yellow flag in sector 2 there. There is the orange Apex Racing machine just making its way down through the field just now. And now there we go. Of course, Cam Sport and Red Shell Racing, before I get too excited here, have still got to pit, I believe. We'll double check that in just a second here. But 2 hours 51 left to go. We're firmly in another transition period, which means that we're due to get some pit stops coming through. Rocket Zancho Sim Sport have pitted from 2nd and 3rd position with mixed results. Rocket Zancho Sim Sport remaining, the number 3 car remaining in 2nd place. But what has happened to that number 2 car there, Alex? Because they've gone all the way back down into to 5th position there.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, car 3, they not only had the pit stop, I think, if memory serves me correctly, but had the drive-through for track limits allocation exceeded. So double bubble there, unfortunately. But yeah, who knows?
But that's what I'm saying, Alex. So number 3 had the drive-through and a pit stop, but they're still in second place, and yet it's the number 2 that's down in 5th. Curious.
Well, looking at the first the thing is I've just seen the first sector for Zancho Rocket Sim Sport, so this could be in conjunction with the pit stop, because it depends on where the car has to park in the box. That's another key point that we haven't really informed everybody about. So, like say with Team Fordzilla, it was like about 16 seconds before they rocked up in their pit stop box, but then like with Rocket Zancho Sim Sport or Zancho Rocket Sim Sport, imagine getting that one wrong. Saying Zancho Sim Sport maybe, for instance. But I digress. The thing is that if you're further down the pit lane, you've got a shorter window for coming out of the pits, but you've got a longer run to that pit stop box.
That's a fair comment. I'm just on the whole thing about Zancho. Wasn't Team Rocket a thing from Pokemon? Team Rocket blasting off at the speed of light. It just triggered a memory from being a kid there.
Why have you got visions of Pikachu going behind your eyeballs right about now? Now that you're talking about Pokemon,
Team Rocket, man. You know, it's.
Mate,
I need to move on, mate, because I'm regressing an 8-year-old here.
Oh God. That's a bit of a backward step there, Mr. Christie, isn't it?
It doesn't take too much for me to mentally regress. It's taken quite a long time to try and get that out of my system. But anyway, we do have a race still going on here. This is Company Precision Racing B that you're seeing there as we move to Red Shell Racing, who are in 4th position just now. They're currently trying to hunt down Camsport, which I believe is literally just right in front of them there, unless I'm very much mistaken. So obviously with 2 hours 48 left to go, we're waiting to see what Fordzilla do here, because that number 3 car at the moment has absolutely nothing for Team Fordzilla, as we've got another yellow flag into sector 3 here, and that is it looks like it's just going to be a car going slightly wide. Hilke van der Veen decided to carry the conversation on about Pokemon even further. Imagine that's a Pikachu behind the wheel, got to pass them all. That there is a crossover right there, Alex. I'm saying.
All I'm going to say is, are we going to have lightning make its way out of the front air dam above the splitter?
I'm trying to think what Pokemon Martin Buchan would be.
Don't know. Probably not Charmander.
Oh, you got to love it. You got to love it. Robbie Stapleford checking in with us on the YouTube channel. A very good afternoon to an incredible young talent. He's watching from the sidelines. There we go, Alex. That's who we need to tag for our 3rd in our sim racing team. That would be it. We'd win everything.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that I've got one person alongside who's just actually brought in some gyoza, Mr. Martin Buchan, who going to grab for a couple of moments here. Martin, pretty good opening few stints there for E-Team. Britt, how's the team feeling at the moment?
Yeah, it was. 4 stints I had to do. 1 silly spin, but to gloss over that. Amos was in the car just now, and she seems to be doing not too bad a pace. Still in the lead lap as well, so it's gone quicker than Imola was. So all very good so far.
When is Mr. Spooner getting behind the wheel, or is he?
He's not getting behind the wheel. He's been banned from getting behind the wheel. No.
Did you hear that one, David? Max Spooner has just been barred from getting behind the wheel.
And about time too.
That's what he gets.
Yeah, David just said, and about time too as well.
No comment.
Well, Martin, we best let you get on. Thank you very much for the gyoza, and all the very best for the rest of the race. That's what it's all about. It's all about the bants, isn't it, David?
Always top quality bants from Martin Barkin. But yeah, no, he's a good lad. He is absolutely a good lad. And Alex, I think what we'll do is we'll let you get on, because we'll let you away off your virtual microphone leash for 10-15 minutes and get a bite to eat. So a huge thank you. Alex will be rejoining us at the next hour in about 10-15 minutes while he goes and steals. This is the condition, Alex. You've got to steal several Gyozas from Martin Buchan, so that is hopefully challenge accepted. In the meantime then, 2 hours 45 minutes left to go in the race. Team Fordzilla are in the lead then, still by 53 seconds. They are out of strategy and out of sync with the rest. Yeah, great to see that is what's happening here just now. Rocket Sancho Simsport, though, this is the weird thing, is the fact that they have taken a pit stop and their sister car, the number 2 car, who was the faster out of both of them in terms of before the last pit stops, they are now down in 5th position. So we really need to figure out what on earth is going on there, because I think it's more than just the extra time that they spent in pit lane there. Robbie Stapleford thinks that I should be driving. Well, there's only 12 cars on the grid just now, so if you want to see a car that's 6 laps down, then by all means, Robbie, that would be a great thing. That is the plan, though. I'm wanting to get myself down to Simpler Race in Milton Keynes and take part in one of their in-person events that I'm not going to be working on comms for. So that would be amazing stuff to do as well. And if it can be a fraction as fast as Robbie, then I'd be very, very happy with that. Though we're currently watching Red Shell Racing, who were in 4th position, as we now cut to Team Fordzilla, still in the lead of the race, but making a lap down on E-Team Press. So what Martin Buchan's done there is he's seen it and he's jinxed it, because he said that Hamish, she was still on the lead lap. She's now not on the lead lap, so as he goes to munch on his supper, that is what has just developed there. But again, no surprises with the absolutely metronomic pace of Team Fordzilla. And I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised to see these gaps increasing even further as the time goes on. It will come down because Team Fordzilla still do have to pit just now. We're currently watching Red Shell Racing come on the back of Camsport. This is through turns number 12 and 13. So they're coming up through Canada Corner. That's 12 and 13. Now this is the right-hander in 14. As they come up the start-finish straight, then up this hill. It's always a wonderful sight seeing the cars coming over the hill here. The lights now on these cars as the dusk starts to set in and the light starts to fade here. Red Shell Racing having a look up the inside of Camsport. It's not going to happen at turn 1, maybe further on down in the lap then, but it's not going to happen just yet. Into 2 and into 3. This is going to be through turn 4, this long right-hander known as the Moraine Sweep. Down the hill then on the brakes into turn 5, battle of the late breakers here. And again, Red Shell Racing doing their very best to try and harass and to harangue Camsport into having an issue and making a mistake there. That's usually what you tend to see from this thing. Fordzilla into the pits end, so we'll keep an eye on what that gap is and what they do here, but Red Shell Racing will keep our eyes on this just now as well. A little bit of a wobble there from Red Shell Racing on the exit of 7 and 8. And gets it going again. Though keeps behind that Camsport machine, so we're starting to see some mistakes creeping in here as the track begins to cool, as the time goes by with 2 hours 42 left to go. It really adds a new dynamic to the race, because not only have you got to think about your own performance, your own ability, but it's about the cars in front of you as well. If you can take a position without fighting for it on track, you're absolutely going to be taking it. Team Fordzilla still in the pits. That gap now is going to change. Fordzilla are in the pits. They're still in the pits. It's a very long full stint for Fordzilla, 42 seconds. So that means then that Sancho Simsport actually regain the lead of this race. In fact, Fordzilla are going to go down into 4th position. So this is, we've got to give relative terms here. Camsport and Red Shell Racing are on a different strategy. They've slightly underfueled. Rocket Sancho Simsport are double stinting their tyres. Fordzilla did a full pit stop there and have backed down into 4th position. Now, That sounds dramatic. It may very well be dramatic. We'll get an idea once the timing screens do a refresh again after all of these pit stops here. But here's the thing. At the moment, that means that Fordzilla are at least 14 seconds behind Rocket Sancho Simsport, because Camsport are 12.5 seconds behind your race leader right now. So that means Fordzilla have got 14 seconds to gain. They can very well do it. We've seen them take chunks of time out of that gap. Has something happened to Rocket Sancho Simsport? Because that gap's now coming down 4.6, 4.1. Has your race leader gone off? They have! Rocket Sancho Simsport, the number 3 car, was off into the grass. That's huge, huge damage, and they're going to be very lucky to get that repaired back in time. And the drama continues here at Road America. That was a huge, huge moment there. So Camsport now, your race leaders, and that has just thrown another roll of the dice into the hands of Team Fordzilla. A very strange race, a very unusual race, just takes another turn for the worst, and Rocket Sancho Simsport are going to be absolutely kicking themselves after that one, straight after a pit stop. Let's see what happens here then. It's on the exit of 7. It's on the entrance of 7. That's a bizarre accident. Way too much of the grass on the inside there, and that's a hard hit on the rear of that LMP car. Unbelievable stuff. Oh, and he tries to get it going, and he spins it again, and that is gutting to watch, mainly because I've done exactly the same thing many times. That second spin is absolutely a result of adrenaline, of stress, of frustration. This is what I was talking about earlier, ladies and gentlemen. This is when you're driving in person and your teammates are right there with you, and something happens like that, you feel like absolute garbage. You feel awful because you've just spun and you've caused an accident, and you think, right, God, I've got to get everything going again, and your brain is going like 10,000 miles an hour, and it's very easy to have a secondary incident straight after that. But Rocket Sancho Simsport into the pits to get repairs done. That you would think there's going to be some lengthy repairs happening to that car. They're currently down in 6th position. This might allow E-Team Brit to potentially get back into that 6th position. Now, this is slightly scary for poor Camsport, who have been quite happy just doing their own race, down in 3rd position, 4th position. They've just been doing their own thing. Now they're about to incur the fury of Team Fordzilla. Team Fordzilla, though, looking very fast, and Camsport are almost like a sitting duck, given that gap was 1.5 seconds. It's down to 0.4 of a second now, and Fordzilla absolutely tearing it up with the speed right now here, and keeping things going. So this is how things look with just over 2.5 hours left to go in this 3rd race of the Simply Racing Endurance season. I tell you what, Fordzilla are not going to want to do that too often, because that was very wide into turn 1. Track infringement penalties are very often a formality here at Road America, especially on our Factor 2. So Camsport in the lead of this race, but Team Fordzilla are really the people that are in the pound seats right now as we see Precision Racing B. Fordzilla might actually be happy to just settle down with this and just keep pushing on, but the more that they get caught behind Camsport, they're going to have to watch out, because Sancho Rocket Simsport in that number 2 machine are looking like they might be able to catch up to them. Now, I've just realised as well, that was the number 3 Rocket Sancho Simsport machine that crashed out from the lead of the race, but they were just short of doing a pit stop as well, I believe. In fact, no, they had done a pit stop. They massively either underfueled or they were double stinting the tyres there. So the longer that Fordzilla get held back behind Camsport here, this, you would think, works into the favour of Sancho Rocket Simsport and able to bring that gap down from 9.5 seconds under that 5-second mark and try and bring that car down. Camsport doing amazing right now. Not too much pressure being applied here from Fordzilla. I think they're maybe biding their time, and in fact Camsport says enough is enough. This isn't my fight, and they are off into pit lane, possibly to change strategy, possibly to change underwear after having the frightening sight of Team Fordzilla just behind them. But yeah, this is awesome stuff to watch here. That gap is now going to go straight back up, as you can see there, because of course Fordzilla now into clean air. But there is Zancho Rocket Simsport in second place there. They have got a car behind them, in front of them. I think that is that not the Avanti racing machine that is just in front of them, the blue livery of that car there. But despite that, they are still managing to close the gap to the car in front. It's actually the Need for Speed machine, and that's why, because they were able to get that slipstream there in that number 2 machine. It gets the move done on the way down into turn number 8. And they keep themselves back on the straight and narrow. But again, now they've lost that toe. Team Fordzilla stretching out that gap to 9.1 seconds. Ubarakuda briefly up into third position there, but again they are out of strategy. They will need to pit, and that will drop them down into P6 or P7 as well. Camsport will jump back up into that third position, or maybe they won't actually, because Red Shell Racing have pitted. So Camsport are now going to be behind Red Shell Racing here, and E-Team Brett in 6th, Rocket Zancho Simsport in 7th position, Avanti Racing in 8th, Kadan Casual Apex into the pits in 9th position, and rounding out your top 10 then, Orange Apex Racing just now as we come up to the top of the half hour here at Road America. We're still watching the side-by-side footage then of Zancho Rocket Simsport. Then you can see that gorgeous black, white and yellow livery that we see on all the Rocket cars. A very familiar sight in sim racing, and of course occasionally in real life racing as well. As Ubarakuda in the pits from third place, that will drop them down into their natural position as well. And again, the track temperature falling even more here at Road America, one of the most iconic circuits here in America, especially through the likes of the IMSA Sports Car Series here in Wisconsin, in Plymouth, Wisconsin. It's just steeped in history, this track. Of course, you know, from the 1950s when the track was brought to life in the middle of the 1950s. But the track actually started just north in the village of Elkhart Lake. That was where there was a track up there that became really popular up there, and they decided to build a bespoke venue down here at Plymouth for sports car racing, and the SCCA. They really backed the idea of having this dedicated venue for sports car racing, and since then Road America has become an absolute staple of the American IMSA series, of the SCCA series, and of worldwide GT racing as well. And fantastic to see. It really still provides drivers and teams with the ultimate challenges. Fast, it's tight, it's technical, it's twisty, and really gives drivers and spectators everything they could possibly want, and doesn't infringe too much on the drivers in terms of artificial chicanes, in terms of things that don't actually need to be there or are put there just to make things a little bit more dramatic. It really is a driver's track. And talking of drivers, one of the drivers' favourites, our very own Alex Goldschmiidt, back with us. Are you suitably refueled and ready for the second half of this race?
I am indeed, my man. I am indeed. Yeah. I mean, coming back to what you were just mentioning about this fantastic circuit. I mean, it hosts GT World Challenge America. Also hosts the Continental Tire Road Race Showcase for the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. So it's a staple of Americana racing action, as it has been over, 3 years from now it's going to have its 70th anniversary. Let's not forget.
It's not bad, is it? It's about as old as me.
I think
Or at least how old I feel.
What with your joints and ligaments and all that kind of stuff then?
Oh, my bones, my bones. Anyway, back to the race then. As you come back then, right, huge drama kicking off. Of course, you hopefully saw this, but Rocket Sancho Simsport, the number 3 machine, crashing out from the lead of the race. Alex, was there any noises that happened in the venue?
There were a couple. I don't think I can repeat what probably might have been said, but I didn't. It was out of earshot, so we're clear on that one, Dave.
Hang on, we'll get Mike Yao with the bleep button.
I will not make sure a bleep button will be initiated today. That's for very much sure. Yeah, he's just gone beep in the background as Mike. Literally the amount of snap-on oversteer and the car going into the barriers, knocking off that key rear wing on these DPI cars. I mean, as soon as you lose that, you lose all downforce on the back end of the car, and you're trying to get that car back to the pits as quickly as possible within the aerodynamic confines that you've got with the car with no rear wing. Of course, if you go and push like crazy, you are going to throw it into the barriers again for a second time, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it certainly is. And again, as I was explaining there, it's so easy to do there as Red Shell Racing get past. I believe that was the Precision Racing by Boat Esports machine that is 3 laps down just now. As you said there, the whole thing of a second accident happening immediately after your first one, it's so common because as a driver you're thinking, oh my god, I need to get going. The adrenaline's absolutely coursing through, the fear and the panic as well, which is compounded by the fact that this is an in-person event down there with you, Alex, in Milton Keynes. Your teammates are there. You've not just got ears listening to you and their judgment over voice chat, you've got their eyes and you can see their disappointment, and these things unfortunately do happen, and it's just a case of how you get yourself out of the predicament.
Yeah, it's sort of like fighting your way out of the trenches, so to speak. And one of the interesting things now, David, as I think you were probably talking about whilst I was having some sustenance, that the headlights are now ablaze on the DPI cars, so we are going a bit into the dusk here at Road America.
Yeah, I did point that out. The lights starting to fade. Not only that, but the temperature on the track starting to fall. The air temperature, not so much, but the track temperature starting to fall away. That means that the grip levels are going to start falling away as well. So again, it'd be very, very interesting to see what that leads to. But unfortunately, that means realistically, we've got one battle on track within a couple of seconds. That's this battle here. CamSport catching hand over fist onto the back of Red Shell Racing here, and quite honestly I think CamSport have got the pace to potentially take this.
Yeah, I think it's also about whether the other side of the coin, apart from CamSport winding up the wick on that number 8 car, is Red Shell Racing will see on the intermediates, the deltas between them and CamSport, as if to say, right, gap's now 4.1 seconds. CamSport last lap around took nearly took the best part of 5.5 tenths of a second out. So the pace is clearly showing on CamSport, but then the pendulum has swung again in the favour of Red Shell Racing, who've just been in a 1 minute 50.3. CamSport over half a second slower. So the track temperatures are making it a bit more difficult for the teams, but then you add another caveat to